Is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino? Blimey.
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet.
Yeah.
And it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as the family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. Is an Aussie that has been dive-bombed by our version of the Magpie, which is much bigger, every spring.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 6. I'm sorry, but I'm still trying to get used to the idea that it's still dark. I know that there will be people listening to this show who are up and about. Some of you are already out on the road, some of you are already working, but many of you are still trying to get up and sort of figure out what to do with the kids for the day, because it's Tuesday, and you think, oh my God, we've got a long week going here. 19th of August, coming up to August bank holiday weekend soon. I keep seeing signs for people having fun fairs, people having all sorts of things going on. You know, we know the football season's back. Peter Blex is here with me. He's already suffering because he's a QPR fan. He went to Watford at the weekend and they didn't win. So I'm sorry about that. Yeah, sorry. Peter's here. We're going to be talking about a great many things, of course. The main dominating story this morning is still what happened last night in Washington, D.C. Front page of the Daily Telegraph has got a picture of Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky, who, thankfully, actually managed to put a jacket on this time. You know, he didn't pretend that he was just in the paramilitaries. He put a jacket. It's not quite a proper jacket. It's not exactly something you'd buy from an ensuite or a sort of bespoke tailor. But nevertheless, he's made an effort. Zelensky and Trump bury the hatchet in the Oval Office as US President agrees to provide security after a peace deal. Is what it says on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Suited, not booted. Front page of the Sun. Zelensky smart for Trump summit. US will protect Ukraine's security. And the Daily Mail goes with Quentin Letts, a bit more of sort of a sketch about what he actually saw. I was electric with Jeopardy. Chess match with live grenades, and that's kind of what happened. Keir Starmer was there with all the other European leaders, and it all looked a bit stunted, to be honest. And the thing that I've noticed, and the thing that many people have noticed about Keir Starmer's performance, is that one, it was perfunctorily wooden, as you would expect it to be, but he's got a bit of a cold sore on his lip, and you just think to yourself, wouldn't you cover that up? You know, we've got people here in the office that if you look as if you come in with a spot, if you come in looking a bit particularly haggard, if you come in looking particularly ridiculous, or you've got a great big wart coming out your nose, the makeup girls will cover it up for you. That's what they do. Nobody's covered up Keir Starmer. So, look at that. You might think it's trivial. I don't. He's supposed to be on the world stage. He's supposed to be representing Britain, and it looks like he's got a great big thing that he's got. I don't know. I'm not going to say it was sexually transmitted because that would be wrong. But you know what I mean? It doesn't look right. Doesn't look right at all. The flag backlash is still going on. They're taking flags down in Tower Hamlets if you happen to put up an England flag or a Great Britain flag or a Union flag. There's that. Also, children have been warned over going on the school run without their parents because of the migrants overrunning this entire country. That's still going on. We've got woke councils. We've got the wrong kind of weather, which is changing the way that railways run. And we've got the BBC forced to correct a story about a woman who died having been airlifted to Italy. They said she died of starvation. She was actually suffering from cancer. What is wrong with these complete and utter scumbags at the BBC? 0344 499 1000, 5 minutes past 6. Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Now, I can only begin by saying, first of all, a very good morning to Peter Blacksley. Peter, nice to see you.
Good morning,
Thank you for coming back to us. We've got the Channel Migrants Tracker, which is now up to 51,239. We're waiting for an update from the weekend. Migrant numbers for 2025 only have reached 27,997. We've got, pretty much national protests against these migrant hotels. Still, Keir Starmer doesn't pay any attention to it. I know we're going to talk about Donald Trump and we're going to talk about Zelensky and we're going to talk about Ukraine, but surely the one thing that is in most people's minds this morning is, when is somebody going to stop the madness of the migrants?
In the week up to Saturday, 2,158 illegals came to the UK via dinghies in 7 days. It is astonishing.
This is since the one in, one out nonsense was purported to be the answer, right?
Very much so.
Yeah. So it's 2,135 in. How many out?
A big fat zero.
That's it. None. Zip. Nada.
Utterly appalling.
Yeah.
And it is, of course, a matter not only of national security, but it is a matter of national outrage.
It is.
And if that clown Starmer and his appalling and quite lamentable cabinet cannot grasp this, which they clearly can't, and absolutely refuse to do anything about it, because this one in, one out is just poppycock,
it's
as we
BS,
know.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Then the anger, the unrest, the dissatisfaction, the disquiet, the rage, which is flowing through this country, is only going to increase.
Yes.
And it's come to the point now when, as I got out the car this morning to come into Talk Towers, and there was quite a wind kicking up, I was thinking, do you know what? Two things. Number one, it won't be long before I need my autumn jacket coming in the morning.
Yes.
But number two, oh, it's blowy, there might not be any dinghies today. That'd be a touch.
It's how you feel. It's absolutely how you feel. I feel the same way when the weather's good. When you wake up and you go, oh, it's rather nice today, and then you suddenly go, oh, crikey, that means there'll be about 1,000 people coming across the channel on these huge boats, which we learned yesterday only cost 350 quid. You can buy them off the Chinese internet, right? They can carry up to sort of 90 people. They're not small. They're not unsafe. None of these people are in any danger. They're all coming here like they're on a bus.
Many people contact me on a regular basis with their suggestions for how to stop it.
Yes.
Some clearly have some knowledge of maritime law.
Yeah.
And they're all saying, they're coming up with pretty reasonable schemes, I think, methods by which we could halt this. We could stop this from happening.
Yeah.
But of course, as long as you've got Hermer as an Attorney General giving the government advice.
Starmer, as well, I like to call him.
Yeah, let's remember him, Starmer's old human rights lawyer chum, who's now the Attorney General.
The man who likes to represent Sinn Féin, likes to represent Hamas, likes to represent, terrorist organisations.
Shamim Begum, people like that. All that kind of stuff. Really has the country's best interest at heart.
Definitely.
As opposed to lining his wallet.
No, that wouldn't be right.
No, couldn't possibly suggest that, could we? No, that would be totally outrageous.
Yeah, absolutely not what we're saying at all.
Yeah. So as long as you've got him as the Attorney General and you've got Starmer, and let's all forgive me, people, for reminding you, a human rights lawyer himself
Yes.
once upon a time.
Yeah.
And you have these weak-willed people who will not challenge the European Convention and European Court on Human Rights, will not challenge those, will not stand up, will not say, in the name of national security, this is an emergency, therefore we don't care what anybody in Europe thinks about us. We quite frankly will challenge everything in the courts. We are putting a stop to it.
Yes, that's what needs to be said. It really does. But of course, he's put it all on the back burner because guess what? He's now got an excuse because he goes, oh, don't worry, I've got to scurry off to Washington to bore the arse off everybody with the way that I speak. I mean, have a look at this, right? This is Starmer speaking at the White House. There was a leaders' meeting where they're all sitting around the table. You've got Ursula von der Leyen, you've got Giorgia Meloni, you've got Emmanuel Macron, you've got the leader of Switzerland, who's some bloke called Dud, I think. I don't know why. But have a look at this. I mean, this is literally, this will bore you to death.
Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you for hosting us here. Can I start where Emmanuel started, which is we all want peace. The war in Ukraine has had a huge impact, particularly on the Ukrainians who've borne the brunt of it, but it's also had an impact on Europe and on the United Kingdom. There's not a family or community that hasn't been affected. And when we talk about security, we're talking about the security not just of Ukraine, we're talking about the security of Europe and the United Kingdom as well, which is why this is such an important issue. I think this is such an important meeting. As a group, I think we've had a discussion on the phone a number of times, Mr. President, but be able now to be around the table to take it forward. And I really feel that we can, I think, with the right approach this afternoon, make real progress, particularly on the security guarantees, and your indication of security guarantees, of some sort of Article 5 style guarantees, fits with what we've been doing with the coalition.
You see J.D. Vance sitting behind him just going...
And Marco Rubio.
He said much more of this.
Yeah.
You know, he said nothing. He's literally said nothing, as having spoken for about a minute. He said nothing.
I commend anybody who managed to stay awake during that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I can do one, right, for you. Thank you, Mr. President, for inviting us here. We've done so much so far. It's been brilliant because we've been able to, you know, put together a plan which will be fantastic going forward. And what we can do is set out a framework for where we can go after this, onto the next time that we. It's just ridiculous. What's he just wastes. I mean, if he was charging by the hour like lawyers do, you can see why he would talk like that, right? That's why he does, because lawyers will charge you for every 15 minutes they do any work, right? And what's a complete plonker? I say, Rodney! It's like, he's in the White House, make your point, sit down, shut the hell up, and move on. He doesn't even know any of that.
These people who can use 1,000 words and say absolutely
nothing. Going forward, thank you, Mr. President. Again, going forward. That's what it sounded like to me.
An immediate switch off. It's just the minute he opens his mouth, switch off, because you know it's just going to be A-grade drivel.
Yes. More disturbingly, however, my crack team of investigative journalists have discovered that in a second speech that he made after the event, right, he's speaking to camera, he appears to have some kind of cold sore on his lip. Right. I know that might be considered trivial by other stations, and they may not highlight it. I don't think they'll be doing this on Sky, but have a look at this.
We had two material outcomes. The first, on the question of security guarantees, was the agreement that the coalition of willing countries, that's 30 countries already working together on security guarantees, will now work with the US on those guarantees, coordinating, and we have already commissioned our teams to do the detailed further work on that. That's really important for security in Ukraine, for security in Europe, and for security in the United Kingdom. The other material outcome was the agreement that will now be a bilateral agreement between President Putin and President Zelensky. That was after a phone call between President Trump and President Putin during the course of this afternoon, followed by a trilateral, which will then add in President Trump.
Again, he's saying absolutely nothing, right? He's managed to describe a phone call. But what's going on with his lip? Why has he not covered that up, right? One. Two, did his wife slap him punch him? Has he got an injury from some kind of activity that he's been involved in, or does he just have a cold sore, which many of us have had in the past? But if you're on broadcast television, you cover it up.
And as a responsible broadcaster,
yeah,
I couldn't possibly condone violence of any description.
That would be wrong.
Unless it's in the boxing ring. But did somebody, on behalf of the nation, give him a split lip?
Well, I mean, that's what it looks like he's got. He's got a split lip. He's got right here, he's got a great big split in his lip. Now, it's either a cold sore or somebody's punched him. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's not a good look, is it?
And clearly the journalists that were interviewing him yesterday didn't have the courage to ask him.
Not one of them.
Yeah.
This is the problem with journalism in this country.
Yeah.
I would, because I'd be putting my hand up going, excuse me, Prime Minister, can you tell us what happened to your lip?
Yeah.
That'd be my question.
Indeed.
I mean, in all fairness, in transparency and all of that we like to see from our leaders, could you tell us what happened to your lip?
Put him on the spot.
Yeah.
Ask the questions. He's the leader of the nation.
Put the spot on the spot.
Indeed.
You know, because there's only one or two ways you can get something like that.
Yeah, some of which are rather unpalatable.
Some.
And perhaps we may not need
we
to go there.
We can't go there, no.
No, we really
That
shouldn't.
would be wrong.
Yeah.
That would be wrong.
Entirely.
To suggest that.
Entirely.
But he's on in the international stage. He's not just talking to Britain, he's talking to the world here. He's in a room with Donald Trump. He's apparently sorting out Zelensky and Ukraine, which of course he's not doing, because none of them are. And some of the things that you can watch when they're all sitting around the table is Georgia Maloney, who looks absolutely petrified every time Starmer speaks. You also J.D. Vance, as I say, over his shoulder, who looks like he'd rather be anywhere but there listening to this crap. You know what I mean?
He'd rather be getting blanked at restaurants in the Cotswolds,
he would,
wouldn't he?
absolutely right.
Yeah.
But what an absolute crock of nonsense this is, this whole Ukraine scenario, because at the end of the day, Trump is sort of entertaining them because he feels like he might as well. But actually, he can't. I think the reason he's got them all there is he quite likes pulling all the strings and going, you know, if I do that, what are you going to do over there? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or did, and of course I have no insider information whatsoever, did Starmer have a few light ales one night as he was trying to drown his sorrows about how appallingly he's running this country?
What, you think he may have walked into the door?
Upstairs or something? Yeah.
That's possible. Yeah, because we've all done it. Let's face it.
And if you turn around, you know how these politicians always love to make out they are men of the people, or you know, women of the nation.
Oh yes.
Yeah, you know, like Lammy when he went fishing the other week.
What, without a licence?
Which I pointed out. I take complete
Are you taking credit for that?
Brilliant. Because last Saturday night,
That's fantastic.
Saturday before last night, I put a message out on X, right, and I addressed it to the Foreign and Commonwealth Office with their handle on it, and I put Lammy and Vance's handles on it, and this, that, and the other. Did they have valid rod licences when they went fishing? And of course, my masterstroke was to copy the Environment Agency into it as well. So I put him on the spot, and of course he referred himself to the Environment Agency. He's now referred himself to the Environment Agency
because he wasn't playing with his own rod.
So there you are. When they try to be man of the people, they are surrounded by such ridiculous, unworldly, stupid advisors. They don't even realise you need a rod licence when you go fishing.
In your own actual house.
Yes.
That's where he was doing it, right?
Yes.
What an absolute plank.
Yes.
Tells you everything you need to know.
And so I may be able...
Peter Blexley. Can I herald you then as the man who actually put Lammy on the spot and has made him admit that he's an idiot?
And should he get a criminal conviction, which it is, to go fishing without a valid rod licence, I will be able to add it to my CV.
And
the man who got the Foreign Secretary.
And also, if it is a criminal conviction, he won't be able to go to America.
Wow.
Because you have to... I just filled out an ESTA form, right? Yeah. Because the last one ran out. And it says, have you ever been convicted of any criminal activity? Yeah. And if you have to tick the box and you don't get a visa.
I'm going to give it another week or so, then I will be following up with the Environment Agency.
And please do follow up with the American Embassy.
Because that investigation,
And say, you know, will you now ban David Lammy from travelling to America? Because that would be hilarious, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Imagine. Fishing. What an absolute plank. It's not... And also the great thing about Lammy as well was that he didn't catch anything. He sat there. Everybody else did. J.D. Vance, his kids, his family, everybody else that was associated with the American side of the arrangement, all caught a fish. Lammy didn't catch anything. Apart from what Keir Starmer's got, obviously, which seems to be going around. I don't know what it is. Some kind of herpes simplex B. I'm not saying that. It could be a cold sore, which is also herpes simplex B, by the way.
Right.
It's easy to get sometimes from just, you know, not feeling very well.
As we used to say back in the days...
Not necessarily a contact
Right.
disease.
Okay. Right, you seem to know an awful lot about this, by the way. But as we used to say back in the day, right, about police officers who were not very good, we'd say he couldn't catch a cold. Well, now we know Lammy couldn't catch a fish.
Yep.
And Prime Minister Starmer may be able to catch something.
Yeah, maybe.
That's all we're saying.
Let's go back to his incredibly inspiring speech to the White House. Check this out.
Security guarantees of some sort of Article 5 style guarantees fits with what we've been doing with the Coalition of the Willing, which we started some months ago, bringing countries together and showing that we were prepared to step up to the plate when it came to security, with you coming alongside the US, alongside what we've already developed. I think we could take a really important step forward today, a historic step, actually.
I mean, for God's sake. Stop. It's so boring. He can't. He's literally said nothing. You know, Captain Coldsore. 20 minutes past 6. Back after this.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and I've got a message for you. Welcome back to this blockbuster edition of What Just Happened. It really is a good one, I think. It's so funny that people keep calling me Meghan Markle, because it's Meghan Sussex now.
Flynn has said, Samara, I agree with you all the time, but you're just boring.
Hi! I refuse to work for ITV ever again.
Oh!
What Just Happened? Fridays at 9 on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 23 minutes past 6. It's still dark, which I find really, really quite disturbing. It's also as though we've moved into autumn already. Peter Blexley's here with me. Very good morning to you, Mr. Blexley.
Morning, Governor.
You're looking very, very resplendent in your suit and tie. We're talking about Keir Starmer, who's been at the White House yesterday, boring literally everybody to death. I can't tell you how boring his speeches have been. Should we go back and see what he's saying now?
No!
Check it out. Have a look.
Can ensure that that is the progress out of this meeting, both security guarantees and some sort of progress on trilateral meeting of some sort to bring some of the difficult issues to a head, then I think today will be seen as a very important day in recent years in relation to a conflict which has gone on for 3 and a bit years, and so far nobody's been able to bring it to this point, so I thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, it's very interesting because this is the first for the war.
People are dying. People are getting shot. People are getting blown up. There are missiles going into buildings. You know, people are, you know, something like 2 million people have perished, right? And you talk about conflict or some of the difficult issues. I mean, what is wrong with him?
When Winston Churchill,
autistic bloke or something.
Yeah, when Winston Churchill said that meeting jaw to jaw is better than war.
Yes.
Okay, right?
Yeah.
That is not what he envisaged.
He's not.
It really wasn't.
No, it really wasn't. Just ridiculous. Let's have a look at old Volodymyr Zelensky, who actually managed to find a jacket to wear to go to the White House this time around. Check it out.
We live under each day attacks. You know that today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead. It's a small bomb. One year and a half. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners. And we will do our best for this. So, and I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, of personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war, and we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about trilateral. I think this is very good.
Look, we just spoke to, I was just telling the president, I just spoke to President Putin indirectly, and we're going to have a phone call right after these meetings today. And we may or may not have a trilat. If we don't have a trilat, then the fighting continues. And if we do, we have a good chance. I think if we have a trilat, there's a good chance of maybe ending it. But he's expecting my call when we're finished with this meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.
So first time, actually, in terms of a news story, Volodymyr Zelensky actually says, I will meet with Vladimir Putin. So whatever you might want to say about Donald Trump, he's making it happen. You know, people might not like him, people may not like the outcome, people may not think it's a good thing that Ukraine has to give up land. You and I are not experts in the global negotiations about war and settlement.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I mean, yeah, I know. You know, listen, you've dealt with the Crims in Brixton, so you know you may know more than I do.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? If they can stop the war, you know, good luck to them. Is all I know.
I've conducted some very tense negotiations.
Have you?
In Ibiza, Malaga.
Yes.
You know, many
These are dangerous places.
Many kinds of places where
These
I've tried
dangerous
to
places.
get a drink just as the bar was closing. Very delicate.
What do you mean you're throwing me out the bar?
Exactly.
How dare you?
Exactly.
You know.
But you're absolutely right when you say that it would not have got to this position without Trump's intervention.
No
and
question.
Him driving the agenda.
Yes.
They are dancing to Trump's tune in terms of the European contingent.
And even Putin. I mean, people say, oh, Putin's playing him like a fiddle. Well, Putin has still come to see him. Putin still came to the table, and he's willing to continue to sit at the table until they do a deal, which he hasn't done with anybody else.
Very true. And sadly, Putin is a monster.
He is.
And it takes a big beast to be able to sit down and talk to him.
Listen, I'm not going to pretend that I'm certainly not in support of Putin. I think what Putin's done is dreadful, ghastly, and all the rest of it. But what we can't do any longer, and I was talking to a colleague of mine just yesterday, she said, nobody says what you say. She says, you're the only broadcaster that says we are not willing to give any more money to Ukraine. We just don't want to. We've had enough. You know, we're bottomed out. We don't have any cash. And people said yesterday to me, why are we borrowing money, right, so that we can give money to another country? Why are they not just borrowing it?
We've got 2,000 illegal migrants coming across the channel every week.
There's that.
We've got to pay for them somehow, haven't we?
Exactly right. But what I'm saying is why doesn't Ukraine go to the Central Bank of Europe and ask for money instead of coming to us and asking for it?
Yeah.
Well, you know, why are we, stuck on that particular, racket?
I mean, the state of the finances of this nation are so dire, so desperate, record levels of taxation, huge unnecessary spending on tens of thousands of people illegally entering this country, hotels, food, clothing, mobile phones, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on.
Bedside lamps.
A welfare bill that is so vast because some people choose to lay on their sofas all day in their joggers, claiming that they can't work, and we basically have a system that's too afraid to knock on their door and properly speak to them and find out whether they can work or not, and if they're being bone-idle skivers, saying, well, I'm sorry, the money's cut off next week. You know, the country's finances are dire. Absolutely dire. I hear rumours.
We're on our arse, there's no question.
Yeah, I hear rumours that the government might have to go to the Bank of England.
They might.
Or even the International Monetary Fund if things carry on
because
like
they can't continue to borrow money at the levels they're borrowing it without somebody at some point going, actually, we're not going to lend you more money. You know, it's a bit like you and I in our household budget going, look, I can't afford to pay the Visa bill this week, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out another credit card just to pay the interest on the Visa card, but we can't actually pay off what we owe. That's where we are. This from, where are we? Warwick in Devon. Good morning, Mike and Peter. Great start to your show as usual. Absolute box office. Is it me, or has Stuck Farmer aged by about 10 years on the clip you showed of him talking once again complete cobblers? Well, you may well ask. I can't answer that. I don't know. Good morning, Mike and Peter. Starmer looks an absolute mess, says Sharon from Staffordshire. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that what happens when you get a cold sore is that you run down. He's obviously run down because he's not getting enough sleep. He's got plenty to worry about. Morning, Mike and Peter. Paul Gerard Yardley here from Germany. Why does Stasi Starmer say Europe and the United Kingdom? Does he not know that the UK first in Europe? Keep up the good work. And Matt in Ho says, I'm surprised Starmer didn't cover up the cold sore with a bit of lipstick. I mean, you can do it. You know, we're all, you know, if I had a cold sore, which I haven't had for many years, since I was a child, basically, you cover it up. You've got, you know, makeup artists that can do that. Yeah. Why hasn't he got a makeup artist that can do that? He covers everything else up, you know, and literally he doesn't tell the truth about anything. Suddenly he's got a cold sore and he doesn't cover it up. The first thing he hasn't covered up in his life.
Yeah, I think the pressure of the job is really beginning to show. It's a very good point that's raised there. And it could well be a sign that he's run down, not coping with it. But of course, great leaders delegate. Okay, that's what great leadership is about. You delegate, you steer the ship. You will make those large, important strategic decisions, but they're based upon the information that your team brings to you.
And you keep an eye on the team, right?
Yeah, exactly. Look after their welfare.
But look at the team.
And make sure they perform. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, QPR might not have had a great start to the season, but let's face it, you know, they're not as bad as this cabinet.
The morning was going so well until you mentioned my beloved football team.
I'm sorry.
Moving swiftly on.
I'll tell you what, I'll take your mind off it. Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Morning, Mike. It's Andy from Birmingham. Hope you're well, bud. Rumour has it in the press today that Starmer's visiting the UK for once. He needs to get back from his little jolly with his pals, sort this immigration issue out. Unlike Starmer's cold sore, this is on everybody's lips. Everybody's talking about it. They need something doing. I've got a feeling that it's really on teetering, like Peter just said, it's teetering on the edge now. Just needs sorting. We need to have some drastic action. I mean drastic, not this one in, one out. What a load of bull that is. Anyway, bud, have a great day.
Andy speaks for a nation. The people that call into this show have got so much wisdom and knowledge and just general joie de vivre about the whole country, and they can spot everything that's going wrong, and a lot of it emanating from Starmer's lips. And whether or not it's coming out of his mouth or whether or not he's got a cold sore, whatever it is, they can see what he's doing. They can see how useless he is. Apparently he cancelled his holiday or postponed it in order to go to Washington. Where's he going on holiday, do you think?
And Andy epitomises so much of what callers into this show have, which is a very sharp sense of humour.
Absolutely.
As well. And that is born only of intelligence.
Yes. British people's and their sense of humour is the only thing that keeps us going. And this is why I spend so much time ripping the mickey, for want of a better phrase, out of the Prime Minister, because it's the only place we can go without going insane, right?
Yeah.
Where do you think Starmer's going on holiday? Let me ask you that. You can possibly give me some suggestions. You know what to do. 0344 499 1000, 87222 on the text, and you can find us on X, of course, at talkTV. Coming up, we're going to talk about some ghastly gangsters. Peter's got something to say about a story you might remember from, was it last year? There was a drive-by shooting in the restaurant in sort of East London, and a little girl was killed as a result of this kind of, you know, gunplay. They finally found the guy who's done it, and they finally sent him to prison, which is good. Also, Andy Burnham apparently has been lined up to be the new Labour leader, and we're going to find out why dry weather is causing problems for the railways. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:35. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Kevin O'Sullivan in for Julie Hartley-Brewer. Peter Blexley is here with us as well. Let's get a voice note from James.
Morning, Mike. It's James from Blackburn. They looked absolutely riveted to every word he was saying then, didn't they? You could actually see they were looking at him going, oh, shut up. And they were also going, what is that horrible thing on his mouth? Shut up. And yeah, what is that? Dirty boy.
Let's have a listen to the great speech in the Oval Office from Keir Starmer. See if you can stay awake for 20 seconds.
And I really feel that we can, I think, with the right approach this afternoon, make real progress, particularly on the security guarantees, and your indication of security guarantees of some sort of Article 5 style guarantees fits with what we've been doing with the Coalition of the Willing, which we started some months ago, bringing countries together and showing that we were prepared to step up to the plate when it came to security, with you coming alongside, the US alongside what we've already developed. I think we could take a really important step forward today, a historic step actually could come out of this meeting in terms of security.
Georgia Maloney's already played with her hair. You know, if you're out with a woman and you're talking to her and she starts doing that and like looking away, I think you've lost the room.
There ain't going to be a second date, pal.
No, you're not going home with her. No. Simple as that. It's just hopeless, isn't he? Yeah. Hopeless.
Everybody in the room, bored witless. Everybody. What is he talking about? This word salad drivel.
Yeah. It's like typical lawyer, right? There's nothing worse than lawyers who think they're clever, who talk absolute and utter BS and spend 25 times more time than anybody else saying what is absolutely nothing.
Or, may I contend, an utterly irrelevant leader of a country who wants to try and express his importance.
Oh, yes.
So he thinks that if he speaks for quite a long time, then he will be heard. He must be important. Yes. Please, Mr. President, please, Mr. President, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. Yeah. He's like that 5-year-old.
Coalition of the Willing.
At the front of the class with his arm up to speak to the teacher.
Yeah.
Miss. Yeah. Please let me talk, let me be relevant and important.
But he's got nothing to say.
Yeah.
Nothing. Morning, Mike. Obviously, Lammy won't be prosecuted over the obvious oversight on some junior civil servant, says David Aberdeen. That's about the fishing that we revealed this morning. Was actually pointed out by Mr. Peter Blexley that he didn't have a licence. Here's one from Nan in Wales. It's not a disgrace that Starmer and his posse of idiots are completely ignoring the one thing that is tipping the British people over the edge: illegals. He needs to drag his butt back here, recall Parliament and declare an emergency. If he fails to do this, he will have no chance of putting a lid on it. And that's right. People in this country don't care about Ukraine, really, right? They don't give a stuff about whether or not Russia is on our doorstep about to, invade us, because they don't believe the rhetoric. And they just want the illegals to be stopped. They want them to be deported, they want to stop them coming in, and they want to be stopped from being given all sorts of freebies in hotels at the cost of the taxpayer. Thank you very much indeed.
Yep. And the boats is only the visual and visceral and irritating side of it. The whole thing about migration in this family is actually a much bigger problem. The people arriving on planes, the people in backs of lorries, the people who are coming here with visas and abusing them and overstaying and such like. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in this country who should not be here. Fundamentally should not be here.
And who need to be kicked out, quite
frankly. Because they are a massive drain on our financial resources.
And some of them are now becoming criminals, which means that when they get here, they're actually committing crime, mostly against women and girls, right?
Yes.
Which is disgusting.
Yes, indeed. And something very, very serious needs to be done about it. But you know what? There's a deeper problem that actually is, I think, is preventing governments, previous governments as well, from doing things. And that is because everybody is fearful of being branded a racist, Okay?
Do you know what? I'm not fearful of that.
Nor am
and
I.
Neither are you.
Because, number one, I'm not a racist.
Exactly.
So it's not a problem. Call me what you like. And give you an example. Sunday, I'm in a lovely pub garden with my mate who was born, his Indian parents came here many, many decades ago. They've raised their kids, wonderful people. Sadly, his dad died recently. His mum's not very well. I do wish her well. And we're having a pint in the pub, and we are discussing, guess what, immigration, right? So my mate, born of Indian parents, brown-faced, clearly, he's as British as bacon and egg, right? Couldn't be more British. Proudly patriotic, loves this country. So much of that attitude he got from his parents, because his parents said, this amazing country took us in, gave us opportunities, we're going to love it, we're going to respect it, we're going to be part of its culture, which is just what an immigrant should do. And he's going, what is going on, Peter? What is going on? He's as concerned about all this migration as anybody else.
It's not a race thing.
It's not.
It's not a race thing.
It's a migration thing. But attached to it is the absolute truth that Britishness is being diluted all the time. Because with every boatload, with every plane load of people that are coming over to abuse visas and the such like, Britishness, British culture is being diluted bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. And that is fundamentally wrong.
It is.
And it should be preserved and it should be protected. And when you've got local councils like Tower Hamlet saying, we're taking down any Union flags, any St George's flags, this, that and the other, whilst at the same time flying Palestinian flags, shows you how deep the rot is entrenched.
Exactly right.
And how much trouble we're in. But let me tell you, the great British Mike Graham Morning Glory audience, their weapons are full of lead and they're ready. And what I mean that is our pencils. Because we do not throw bricks at police. We don't burn down hotels. We're decent, hard-working, tax-paying, law-abiding members of public. And the next time an election comes round and we put our ex in the box, this lot will be consigned to the dustbin of history.
Fantastic.
What we really need is somebody fit, able, with a suitable team to knock this country back into shape.
And if they haven't ripped all of the money out of our pockets, which they're going to try and do between now and then, we will also put our money where our mouth is, I think you'll find. Let's get a voice note from John.
Morning, Mike. John from West Yorkshire here. Very concerned about the Prime Minister's bottom lip. But I just wonder, with all those people gathered together, particularly after that sort of massive man hug that he gave Zelensky the other day, whether, know what the French are a little bit more forward, whether he just went a little bit too far with his hugging and situation with Macron. And we know what Macron's wife's right hand's like. Maybe. Who's to say? Maybe. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
John, I think I know what you're saying there. It's shockingly tragic that Starmer finds himself in the position that he's in. Mike McDonald negotiated a deal to get mineral rights from Ukraine to pay for the USA's investment in Ukraine. Why has our useless government not done the same? Says Taunton Tim. Good point. Good morning, Mike and Talk. You've already accidentally found your first lie of the day. You just played a clip of Keith saying that families and communities care about Ukraine. I don't wish to be flippant, but we have enough of our own problems. Maybe our own leader should put them first, please, says Simon in Clondalkin. And you're absolutely right. By the way, can I just congratulate you on that cri de coeur, your little speech there, which I think we're going to clip. We're going to put it out there because people really appreciate you for that. And people really love this station because of the things that get said, like what you just said about, this lot being consigned to the dustbin of history, because nothing could be more truthful. Nothing could please me more than to see this ghastly, horrendous, inefficient, useless, incapacitated, bloody talentless government getting consigned into a bin of some kind. Whether it's history or not doesn't really matter to me. We'll be back after this.
you can't try and snipe at the Conservatives for things that weren't our fault.
Oh, I mean, I
This
haven't
is
got
not one.
time. Tell your big mate Donald Trump to tell his big mate Vladimir Putin to stop killing people, then we can solve that problem like that.
For me personally, I disagree.
Why? Why do you disagree, though? Why do you want our young people left on the scrap heap? The court's time being wasted, laying down a ruling on what is a woman. You and I have been speaking for far too many years about
And
this.
actually, you know, I'm very grateful to you too, because you have always covered this topic.
Across the UK.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:47, very nearly. We are into the first hour of the show. It's still looking pretty dull out there. I don't know what's going on with the sun these days. It doesn't come up very soon, before 7 o'clock. Generally speaking. Scout has sent me a couple of pictures, very much appreciated, with Vladimir Zelensky wearing the same jacket that he's wearing in Washington to when he went to the Pope's funeral. So it's almost like it's a, it's not really a proper jacket. It's not like a jacket like this with three buttons and, you know, 2 lapels in the pocket. It's a sort of combat jacket. It's the sort of thing you might wear if you're going shooting or something. I don't know what he's wearing, but he wore the same outfit to go to the Pope's funeral, apparently.
Well, I think it's the kind of jacket which is popular with the youth department.
Oh, is that right?
These days. I tend to see him. I heard
He's
somebody...
not that young, Zelensky, is he?
Yeah, no, but I heard somebody, and I might be wrong here because fashion is not my strong point, but I think they're called a shacket, which is something that's a bit like a shirt and a bit like a jacket or something.
Right.
I think it's one of those kind of things. You know, and they've got breast pockets on the outside, haven't they? And
do you put anything in the pockets or not?
I've no idea.
Yeah. Just buy a proper bloody suit, mate, and wear a jacket and tie, and when you're going to the White House, that's kind of what you should be wearing, isn't it?
Most definitely.
Sorry, he looks like an idiot otherwise. And
Most
also,
definitely.
he looks like an overgrown teenager, which he's clearly not. Page 20 of the Daily Mail, BBC have spent £61,000, they say, in pin money. They've basically blown this cash on call it out badges, mugs and lanyards to expose work pests. Doesn't seem to be working terribly well because the place is riddled with paedophiles, sex pests and rapists.
Well, when I saw BBC spend £61,000 on mugs, I thought Jeremy Viner got a pay rise, right? But
another outing for Philip Schofield.
but actually, yes, mugs and pin badges and lanyards. Lanyards. Don't forget the lanyards.
Yeah. Do you know there's now a phrase for the lanyard class? The people who are like the ones that work at the BBC, who have literally no idea what's going on outside the office. And they just think that everybody is like them. And there's a middle class, you know, wannabes, not working for very much money, but parents have got loads of money and a big house in Fulham. And a Volvo. You know, that's kind of who they are, the lanyard class.
Yeah, but there's another breed of lanyard wearers who deeply, deeply concern me. And they are the ones who are well paid. And they work in the diversity, equality and inclusion kind of world of HR.
Well, this is kind of where some of this money's gone, apparently.
Indeed, indeed. And those people think they're so important that they wear their lanyards on the train on the way home.
No.
Because they want everybody to know how important
I can't
they
have
are.
that. I've seen that. I've seen it. And they wear them with pride, don't they? They've got the name of the company. It's not always the BBC, but it's the name of the company down the side of the lanyard. You know, like, you know.
And it's to keep us in our place. Look at me. I'm a lanyard wearer on the train, on the way home, because I am so
It's
important.
a bit like, you know, when I was
little underling.
in the old days when I was into music a lot, and you'd get these passes that went access all areas, right, which meant you could go backstage and all the rest of it, and you'd walk around wearing it because it made you look cool. But you did it when you were at 15, you know, not when you're 25 or 35 or 45, as some of these idiots do. There's another story about the BBC. It's on the front page of the Telegraph. It turns out that the BBC ran a story yesterday about a woman from Gaza who was flown into Italy to be fixed up she was suffering supposedly from malnutrition, but she also was suffering from cancer and leukemia, and it turned out that's why she was being taken to Italy. She died over the weekend, right? And the BBC reported that she died of starvation. Because the Israelis had not allowed her to eat, which was entirely wrong. They've had to correct it and actually say, we're really sorry about this. Turns out she actually died from leukemia.
Yes, and then they went on to...
What's wrong with them?
Yeah, and then the BBC went on to claim that they didn't know she had leukemia.
Oh, do me a favour.
Hello, you're journalists. Yeah. What is the one thing that a journalist must have? Right. A curious mind.
And also seek information.
Correct.
And we know, and because everybody knows, that the people who have been evacuated from Gaza to various countries in Europe, and they're soon to be coming here, is they're being evacuated not because they're starving, but because they're terminally ill.
Yes.
And we're trying to help them.
Yes.
And why does the BBC try and do this? Because they're anti-Semitic scumbags. That's the simple answer.
Just an oversight. We just forgot to ask, you know, what was wrong with this woman.
Yeah.
We just forgot to ask whether she had any underlying medical conditions, which meant she'd been evacuated to Italy. Yeah, just forgot to ask. So pumped out a load of dangerously misleading guff.
Right.
Which they
to make it look
had
as
to
though
correct.
Israel had starved this woman to death. It's absolutely disgraceful what they do. Let's get a voice note from Johnny, shall we?
Morning, Mike. It's Johnny in the van. Just a comment on Keir Starmer's cold sore on his lip. When I was growing up, my mum used to tell me that cold sores were the thing you got for lying. Just saying, mate. Keep up the good work.
Brilliant. It's true. Johnny, absolutely love it. Morning, Mike. Good Lord, put the TV on. I thought I was watching Harry Potter giving a eulogy. But no, it was boring Rodney. Great show, you pair, says Jane. Absolutely. Thank you, Jane. Shall we talk about this terrible story of the drive-by shooting in Hackney, I think it was, where a guy has now finally been found guilty of firing a gun into a crowded restaurant, which resulted in the death of a child.
Well, actually, forgive me for correcting you, Mike, but this man, 33-year-old Javon Riley, remember the name, should you ever have the misfortune to come across him. He didn't actually pull the trigger, but what he did was he acted as a spotter. Now, for decades, going back even to when I was on the Central Drug Squad at Scotland Yard, the Turks have really had a very, very firm grip on the heroin trade. Right? They used to be up at Seven Sisters Road back in the day and all of that. And it was really difficult to try and penetrate, to try and plant bugs like we used to do, to work undercover, to get phone taps and all of that. Really difficult. They ran a very, very tight ship in this illegal trade. Well, it's moved on, and basically the London, and you could almost say the British heroin trade, is controlled by two Turkish gangs, the Tottenham Turks and the Hackney Turks. And these lot do not get on. There has been a trail of bloodshed, murders, shootings across the world as they pursued.
And would these
one
guys
another.
be illegal immigrants or not? Or would they be legal?
Well, funnily enough, the newspaper don't tell us that. The courts don't make that information publicly available. It would be very interesting to know, wouldn't it? It would. And if the National Police Chiefs Council guidelines of last week about police disclosing ethnicity and nationality of people, we might just get to find out, mightn't we? It would be very, very interesting.
Quite useful to know.
The public has a right to know.
I think so.
We surely do, and we should demand
Because let's deport these scumbags if that's what they're doing. If they're shooting bullets on our streets, which could potentially kill innocent people, I think we've got the right to kick them out of the country.
Well, talking of deportation, Javon Riley, whose name I just mentioned, 33 years old, was born in Jamaica.
Oh, yes.
So he comes over here, starts a career for himself as an international drug dealer. What he did was on the day of this shooting, when this poor 9-year-old girl got shot in the head, she didn't die, she's still alive, but the bullet remains lodged in her brain. She's got life-changing injuries. Life will never be the same for her. Javon Riley acted as a spotter for the gunman, because what they wanted to ensure was that the right characters were at this restaurant when the gunman came and started firing at them, because they wanted to kill their rivals. So Riley acted as a spotter, and then he helped the gunman escape. The gunman himself, that wicked man who pulled the trigger, has not yet been caught. and he's undoubtedly out there.
He's probably left the country, hasn't he?
Quite possibly. So many of them have done in recent times, and they've been murdered in other countries. If you read the article on page 5 of the Times, it's pretty gloomy and depressing, but it'll give you some kind of detail of the global reach, the levels of violence and bloodshed, and just what these people who control this heroin trade will do to protect their interests.
Yeah, horrible stuff. Let's look at front page of the Telegraph. They've got a story about Rachel Reeves, who we haven't heard from since yesterday. Apparently she's drawing up plans for a fresh raid on homeowners in the budget as she struggles to balance the books and improve the economy. She's looking at possibly putting on a property tax on whatever house you've got because she can't think of any other ways to tax us. I mean, this woman is so inept and so useless that she has stewarded our economy basically into the toilet. And she's now desperately running around trying to go, where else can I get some money from? Almost every single, you know, kind of plan of hers to bring more money into the Treasury has failed dismally in the same way that probably this one will. I was reading yesterday a lot of people saying, you know, the new inheritance tax rules are going to hit people's pensions, they're going to hit people's houses. They're just going to get around it and they're not going to pay the tax. She's not going to raise any money at all.
Calling all people who have worked hard all their lives, been fortunate enough to buy a property, paid their mortgage off, been responsible, kept the house or flat very nicely. She's coming after you because you had the temerity to knock your whatsits out, paying off that mortgage, and you've got a house as a result of it.
What a shocker.
Well, 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 the socialists are at it again.
Yes. And now they're going to come after you because your house might be worth a few quid, and they decided that that's a good way of taxing you because you've got a house worth a few quid.
Yes, and they're having in discussions with local councils as to whether to make this a national tax or perhaps even having a local property tax, which will raise more money for the skint councils who have been run so poorly. There is a way to vastly improve the finances of this nation, and it doesn't have to be through punitive taxation. Stop spending like Rayner did the other week, $7 grand on 2 beds. Right? And I heard a Labour advisor say, well, it wasn't her money. That's exactly the attitude. That's the problem. It's in the NHS, it's in policing, it's throughout public service.
It's not
You've
our
got
money.
these people who don't treat our money as their own. And they should do. If you're in a position of responsibility in the public sector, treat that money as if it's your money and don't waste it. Don't give it to the undeserving. Go and get them off their sofas and get them off their rear ends, get them doing something. Don't let thousands of people in a week who shouldn't be here. And don't spend money on hotels and feeding them and clothing them and giving them mobile phones and theatre tickets and all other manner of nonsense. Run the country efficiently and properly, and only the deserving get what they deserve.
There was a story yesterday, and this will enrage you even more just before we say cheerio. Apparently migrants are being offered down on the south coast half-price rentals on beach huts, you know, which actually cost quite a few quid. But you can rent a beach hut if you're a migrant for half the price that you and I can rent it for if you want to fancy a day at the beach. Isn't that nice? This from Paul in Salford. Mike, may I say your Tuesday morning show with the great Peter Blexley is my favourite time of the talk schedule. Please double the time you two spend together. We'd love to, but we can't afford him. You know, we can only do an hour. Mike, good morning. Every day you make me laugh. Captain Cold Sore. I think I just woke up all the neighbours with my cackling, says Hevin Kent. Captain Cold Sore, I think, is going to stick, isn't it?
Very good.
Have you got a cure for a cold sore? What's the best thing to put on it?
No, I don't, actually.
No?
I've never had one, fortunately.
Really?
No.
My God. Well, listen, never a truer word spoken in jest. Peter Blexley's never had a cold sore. I've had a few over time, but not since I was about 15. Why has Keir Starmer got one? That's my question. This is Talk. More from the dangerous world of politics coming after the news.
How much, ladies and
I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 7. Peter Blexley, what a guy. I tell you what, I mean, I don't think, I just said to him as he walked out of the room there, and there is nowhere else in the world that you will hear the kind of radio and the kind of television that we just did for the last hour. Absolutely incredible, absolutely amazing. And of course, his cri de coeur about this ghastly, horrible lot, this terrible cabinet, this terrible government, this terrible Labour administration, he says will soon be consigned to the dustbin of history. It might not be now, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be next year, it might not be the year after that, but it will certainly come, and they will never, ever be given charge of a government ever again, because that's how useless they are. Let's get a voice note from Tony.
Morning, Mike. Tony from North Somerset. Look, mate, I had a 4:30 a.m. start this morning on the road, and every time you and Peter, I'm agreeing with Peter actually, you keep playing Starmer speaking yesterday. It's making me nod off. Please, no more. I can't bear it anymore. Like anyone can't bear what Starmer's doing to the country anymore. Please make it stop. Please.
I know. He's out there working, Tony, like most people are at this time of the day. 7 minutes, so 4 minutes past 7. You know, people are sick to the back teeth of being rinsed for cash, being rinsed for tax, watching house prices going absolutely nowhere because of the stamp duty being put up, watching you know, the inability of anybody to make a decent living unless you happen to work for the public sector. We're going to talk to Jamie Jenkins coming up later on in the show, who's our favourite statistician, who's going to be telling us how public sector pay has risen so much versus private sector pay that we've got, guess what, a two-tier pay system. You know, thanks to Keir Starmer, two-tier Keir, the man who could not run a whelk stall. This from Una says, good morning to Mike. Two of my three favourite men, Mike, Peter and my husband Nigel, whose birthday it is today. He'd love a mention. Well, there you go. Happy birthday, Nigel. My son's birthday was yesterday. He's coming up today to join me for a little bit of a meal later on. Coming up, we'll also talk to Robert Jenrick, who's been talking about how children have been frightened to go on the school run because of the migrants in this country. There are so many migrants in so many parts of Britain that now children have been warned to be very careful as they go to school so that they don't get 1, kidnapped, 2, sexually assaulted, 3, raped, 4, murdered. You know? I'm sorry, I'm not going to make any apology for saying this. We know that somebody from Afghanistan tried to kidnap a 10-year-old. We know that somebody has been charged with raping an 8-year-old. We know that another migrant has been charged with raping a 12-year-old. We also know that there is a consistent pattern of behaviour around the migrant hotels, and this is why there are so many demonstrations going on. We will, of course, talk about Donald Trump and Keir Starmer, who went over to America to make a complete fool of himself. He's got a cold sore on his lip, hasn't even bothered covering up. Looks ridiculous. We're going to play that to you in a moment. Look at the state of him. 0344 499 1000. This is Morning Glory. This one from, where is it? Mark in Croydon. He says, Mike, listening from Riga, getting my common sense fixed while I'm away. I noticed that Pratt 2-tier has stopped calling Trump Donald. I wonder if they said, show some respect, you weasel. Yeah, I wonder if he has, because when he's there, he can't pretend that he's the only one that has got Donald Trump in the room. And of course, this one from Lee in Walsall. Morning, Mike. Pete, great start to the show. Can you imagine Zelensky's horror to hear Starmer promising to give security to Ukraine? He can't stop a rubber boat, never mind a tank or a missile. I know, or a MiG even. Let's have a look, shall we, at Keir Starmer and his amazing speech yesterday in Washington.
Can I start where Emmanuel started, which is we all want peace. The war in Ukraine has had a huge impact, particularly on the Ukrainians who've borne the brunt of it, but it's also had an impact on Europe and on the United Kingdom. There's not a family or community that hasn't been affected. And when we talk about security, we're talking about the security not just of Ukraine, we're talking about the security of Europe and the United Kingdom as well, which is why this is such an important issue. I think this is such an important meeting. As a group, I think we've had a discussion on the phone a number of times, Mr. President, but be able now to be around the table to take it forward. And I really feel that we can, I think, with the right approach this afternoon, make real progress, particularly on the security guarantees, and your indication of security guarantees of some sort of Article 5 style guarantee.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I just nodded off there for a second. What's he? Apparently the war has had an impact on the people of Ukraine. Are you having a laugh? It's a war in Ukraine. Of course it had a bloody impact on the people of Ukraine, you complete and utter idiot. He's an embarrassment to Britain on the world stage. You know, those people who say, oh, the thing is, he might not be great at domestic issues, but, you know, he really does cut a swathe when he goes onto the international stage. No, he doesn't. He's completely useless in every possible avenue of anything that he does. Even Starmer's bestie, says Steve, Macron looks bored, let alone Meloni, who looked like she wished she'd gone to Disneyland instead. Christ almighty, is this the best we can do? Is this really Britain on the world stage? Yeah, the war in Ukraine's had an impact on the people of Ukraine. Yeah, they've been murdered. Loads of them have died. Of course it had a bloody impact. Imbecile. Sorry about this. Let's talk to Anne May O'Neill, who's a Reform Councillor for Epping. Get some common sense back on the show. Annie May, very good morning to you.
Very good morning, Mike.
Nice to see you. Now, I'm not going to, I don't think, give anything away by saying that, are you not the model for the Reform football shirt?
Yes, I am. I have been all over Twitter, fortunately.
No, it's good, and it's going terribly well for Reform right now, not least in places like Epping, where you're getting a really, really great response from local people who are saying enough is enough. I mean, watch Keir Starmer there in his role as the sort of superannuated leader of Britain, boring the arse, frankly, out of everybody in Washington. Should he not be back here coming to Epping and seeing you guys and saying, this is what we're going to do about the migrant hotels?
Well, this is something that I've argued a lot for, and I think that we do live in a democratic state, and at the moment, Keir Starmer not responding to the outrage across the United Kingdom is very authoritarian of him. Yeah. The fact that he hasn't addressed it whatsoever shows that he is completely left-wing on the issue at all and isn't listening to concerned parents, and it's concerning that we voted him in the last general election to be our Prime Minister. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spoke to colleagues of yours a couple of weeks ago, and mothers who were down making the demonstrations at the beginning, and I said, what do you want to say to Keir Starmer if you've got a message? And they said,
We just want him to come down here. We want Yvette Cooper to come down and listen to us and look at what the problems are that we're facing. And I presume you've had nobody down there. You've had Robert Jenrick down there. You've had obviously Reform MPs down there as well. But you've had nobody from the government, right?
Well, Kemi Badenoch didn't attend the protest, but she did come to the town of Epping after 4 weeks after the incident, which I think absolutely shocking, causing that she's the opposing cabinet. However, I do find that this, like I said, we do not vote for 50,000 illegal migrants coming over in the last general election. Yeah. And we've just got concerned parents, concerned families, and people are slating it to right wing, but it's really just, it's not right, it's not left, it's just safety and fear.
Right. And what's it like in Epping, like during the week when there's no protest going on? Do the people who live in the hotel come and go freely, or are they sort of not doing that anymore?
Well, so they used to. If you're aware of the layout, it's technically the hotel was about 100 yards away from the secondary school, about 150 yards away from a care home facility, and about a mile away from a primary school. And this is something that I do question. What was the government's planning behind this? I find that if they were looking at hotels to put asylum seekers in, why would they put one so close to a high street? And you're right, they did. Prior to the incidents, they would be sitting outside primary schools and secondary schools on benches at 3 p.m. And to me, that's scary. That's why we don't know who these men are. We don't know where they come from, and the cultures that they grow up in are completely different to Western culture in today's society. So like I said, again, it's not right, it's not left, it's just concern.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think this week there's a big court case coming up, isn't there, where the local council have tried to stop the government from keeping these migrants in the hotel, which is it's quite an important court case. I think it's coming up either tomorrow or the day after, and a judge may well rule that they have to shut it down.
Well, I think that's brilliant. I think that will show parents that their voices have been heard, and that across the country, it was starting off with Epping that led to mass protests across London and up north. And I believe that as soon as this injunction will be heard, this will then show that the public that they have been listened to. And again, we do not live in an authoritarian state. Yeah.
And you're a councillor in Epping. I presume you've been there since the last election. How have you found that transition from what were you doing before?
So I actually am a law student. I'm studying to become a lawyer, and I'm only young, and I work and take my free time out as a town councillor, and I find that this is a way that I can connect with the community. And working for Ongar, Chipping Ongar's my ward, but Epping for the whole, there's such a lovely, calm village community, and it's so terrible to see this outroar, especially the protests on the 17th of July. That was just completely out of the aspect for Epping as a whole. So yeah, it's amazing to represent the community, and it's doing something that I love. So yeah.
Have you been surprised at anything that you found inside working inside as a councillor?
Well, I think with reform and town councillors as a whole, we don't really do much to do with district councils or county councils. But something I do find is the lack of patriotism in the council alone. The fact that we haven't really got lots of United Kingdom flags up. And I think we've seen a news story today that Keir Starmer's finally said something about them allowing to put up the St George's flag. The whole allowing situation is just barbaric to me. The St George's and the Union Jack should be portrayed everywhere. This is the United Kingdom. This is what our grandfathers fought for, freedom.
And do you feel as though there is a kind of surge of nationalism going on at the moment?
Oh, 100%. I do find that it has to be inclusive. Everything has to be inclusive at the moment to absolutely everyone. And when people actually start to backtrack and say, actually, we are patriotic to live in the country, like I said, that our grandfathers fought in, it seems like you're racist or you're completely far right. I mean, at one point, Keir Starmer was saying that far right men who are patriotic were seen as terrorists. I remember that in the news a couple of months ago. So it's seen that as soon as you do act patriotic, as many countries do, as we see with the United States of America and places like France, it's seen as racist, and I think that's completely barbaric.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as the next protest is concerned, is there another one coming this weekend?
I believe there's one coming on Thursday, and then there should be one again on Sunday. They're local and they are so peaceful. I attended the one on Sunday with Robert Jenrick, and I've seen that it's just families, just mothers, fathers, children are there, there's music playing. It's just seemed to hopefully get their voices heard, and hopefully today, with the injunction from the High Court, we will be able to see what actually occurs with the hotel.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Annie May, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Annie May O'Neill, Reform Councillor for Epping. She's got a lot ahead of her in terms of what she's going to be doing in politics, I suspect. This from Mark in Selby says, Mike and Peter, our sadly PM is nothing more than an office worker who would have a meeting to decide about what biscuits to have at the next meeting rather than address the huge issues in the UK. I'm surprised Two-Tier was not given a name badge or a lanyard so other leaders knew who he was. Morning, Mike, says Mark in West Sussex. Comedy gold today, chaps. Must have been the trilateral that caused Starmer's bad lip. And Peter in Croydon, well on form today, boys. The home of hilarity and honesty as well. The best breakfast show ever. Well, we try our best, you know, because we're up against it, you know. If you think I'm funny, have a listen to Keir Starmer. Check this out.
Obviously, that has to involve Ukraine, and a trilateral meeting seems the sensible next step. So thank you for being prepared to take that forward, because I think if we can ensure that that is the progress out of this meeting, both security guarantees and some sort of progress on trilateral meeting of some sort to bring some of the difficult issues to a head, then I think today will be seen as a very important day in recent years in relation to a conflict which has got...
It reminds me of sitting in student union meetings, right? And some idiot would organise a meeting and go, right, we're all going to have to make a standing order in order to go to the student union conference in the autumn, which will be inevitably in Blackpool, and we will sit around and talk for hours about whether or not, you know, black is white and white is black, and what you have to do with your hands if you're not sitting on them. This guy's meant to be the leader of the nation. Jesus Christ. Here's a voice note from Ken.
Morning, Mike. Ken here in Dorset, just travelling up the M3, listening to you as usual. I've only pulled over to send this in. Mate, could you do us a favour? Look, I've got this mute button on my steering wheel, and every time I hear Starmer's droning voice, I have to press it, and I'm wearing it out. A great show, Mike, as it always is. Regards to you and to Peter.
Ken, listen, I appreciate it. I'm sorry about the mute button. I'm going to go back to it again. Just imagine, right? Imagine you've gone for the first time in your life, gone to university, and you've decided to get involved in the student union because you think you might have a bit of a penchant for politics, and you end up listening to the most boring bloke in the room. This is him.
Important issue. I think this is such an important meeting. As a group, I think we've had a discussion on the phone a number of times, Mr. President, but be able now to be around the table to take it forward. And I really feel that we can, I think, with the right approach this afternoon, make real progress, particularly on the security guarantees, and your indication of security guarantees of some sort of Article 5 style guarantees fits with what we've been doing with the Coalition of the Willing, which we started some months ago, bringing countries together and showing that we were prepared to step up to the plate when it came.
Maloney's literally playing with her hair, right? You know you've lost the room and that's going on. When the only beautiful woman in the room is literally not even paying attention to you. You know, she's bored, she'd like to go home, she'd like to find any other bloke in the bar to talk to apart from you. She's playing with her hair. You've lost it, mate. Mate. 18 minutes past 7.
How realistic do you think a ceasefire is this week?
There's a very good chance that we'll have a settlement, an agreement of some kind.
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.
What are you looking for here?
An end. A real end. Well, all of a sudden he's a big shot because he has the U.S. on his side. I am very disappointed with President Putin. He'll talk so beautifully and then he'll bomb people at night.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 21 minutes past 7. Lady Anne says, come on, Mike, stop torturing us with that boring bastard Starmer. I can't help it. He's in, he's in the Oval Office. He's in Washington, D.C. He's gone there because he's apparently representing Great Britain. Unfortunately, he is our man in Washington. Which I'm sorry to say is entirely wrong. Let's get Harry Cole's view. He's the Sun's editor-at-large. He's in Washington. He brings us this special report.
Hello, it's Harry Cole, the Sun's editor-at-large here at the White House in the press briefing room, where we've just seen one of the most extraordinary summits in 15 years as a journalist I've ever covered. Now, normally these sort of events where you see world leaders coming together are months in organising, months in the making. There's all sorts of things stitched up in advance. Communiques and agreements are written by Sherpas and aides and officials behind the scenes before the leaders ever get into the room. But this has been one of the most impromptu organised meetings well, in modern history, really, but some form of American underwriting of European defence of Ukraine is a big win for Zelensky, a big win for Ukraine, and it means it does unlock that crucial trilateral talks. That means the Ukrainians are suddenly now ready to negotiate, and these negotiations aren't going to be great for them. It's clear that they're going to have to sacrifice some land. But in another win for Zelensky today, Donald Trump very clearly on the record said that actually he thinks it's sensible to have these negotiations around the current front lines, not the maximalist approach for the Russians who are saying, well, hang on, we want all of the Donbass region, we want bits of Ukraine we don't actually currently occupy to be on the table. It's clear the negotiations are going to begin. Lots of negotiations behind the scenes to get this far. But the real haggle starts now, and while this has been a successful day for Zelensky, there's going to be some bad news down the line, and he's going to have to sell this deal to his people.
Well, let's see how the people of Ukraine actually want to deal with it. We're going to speak to a Ukrainian MP in a moment, Yulia Surko. First, let's hear from Donald Trump.
There'll be a lot of help when it comes to security. There's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
Yeah, I mean, obviously America will be involved, but it's a very complex situation. Let's get the view from Ukraine, from an MP there, Yulia Surko. Yulia, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Hello
from Ukraine.
Thank you very much indeed. What are you making of what's being said in Washington? What do you think Mr. Zelensky has agreed, if anything? What's your view?
My view, actually, you said it was very boring. I'm 100% agree with you, but it's not only boring, it's a lack of clarity. Actually, we are talking about very complicated and very, so to say, complex things. Yes. And unfortunately, I didn't get, as MP, as a Ukrainian citizen, I didn't get any clarity of what they were talking about yesterday. So we have three blocks of issues. First of all, it's a security guarantee. to sustain for sustainable peace. It's mean weapons and money for weapons and troops on the ground, boots on the ground. The second block is financial guarantees to rebuild Ukraine, because we have destroyed cities by Russians, killed civilians, and we have more than 10 million of internally and externally displaced people.
Right.
And the third one is a justice. Who will punished for the rapes of kids, for the killing of kids, of women? We have so many killed civilians, probably one of the biggest amount in any wars. And we want, as Ukrainians, to understand who will be punished for that. Right. I don't think you can say just, okay, make a deal and that's it. It will not. It will not end this way.
Right.
So the lack of clarity and a really action plan, devil in details. And we know that Russians could play with details in the very, very, in a manipulative way, I would say.
And if Zelensky does a deal with Putin in Washington or with Donald Trump without any of those things, will that be acceptable to anyone in Ukraine or not?
I think concession of territories, any kind of concession of territories, as well as peace without guarantees, will mean for Zelensky political suicide. So people will not accept it after the blood, so many years of a bloody war, and I mean, you cannot sell it to Ukrainian nation.
Right. And so would you say that Ukrainians would rather continue to fight the war than settle in a way which is unacceptable?
I think we need peace, the whole continent. The problem is the very lack of understanding of the depths of the problem, as well as the political will in Europe.
Yeah.
They are so unpractical, and they don't have real plan, honestly, in general. So I would like to see what is the real plan, and then we can discuss if Ukrainians will accept it or not.
Right.
Sure, we are tired of the 4 years of war. We want peace. We want to live in our houses, peaceful life. But if it will mean that tomorrow Russians will come again to Bucha, rape our kids, kill our parents, and would destroy our houses, then better to fight than to die this way.
Yeah. Well, they say sometimes better to die standing up than to die on your knees, I guess is what they say. But what
Exactly.
about Zelensky's popularity? If he does this deal, which you say would be political suicide, who would step in?
No, we don't know, because unfortunately we have no. Zelensky was always dominating as a candidate because it was, we have a martial law. We don't have any political process. We don't have any candidates to show their programs and campaigning. So we will need proper political process for many candidates, so we can vote for the decent president in a very transparent and open process, because elections is a very important also. We already as a parliament we expired 2 years ago.
Right.
As a president, he also expired 2 years ago, so to say expired. But we need elections, but we cannot conduct it physically because it's very dangerous to put a lot of people in the political and election process when you have missiles flying over your heads.
Right. And is that still what's going on? I mean, how is life on a day-to-day basis for you?
Unfortunately, we used to it. We used to sit in the bomb shelters. My kids spending probably 8 hours per week in a bomb shelter at school. Some of the schools in eastern Ukraine, we have underground school. Probably this is one of the case study for universities. We have almost 100 schools to be built under the ground. And our kids go into the school, we have life, we have cafes, coffee, but this is not a peaceful life. So every time you are sleeping and waking up and thinking thanks God you are alive today. So I mean, probably we are living this life, but this is normal life, not normal life.
No, it's really not. And what's your best hope then that comes out of this? What would you like to see a deal suggesting?
I think the most probable deal, it's a clear and powerful security guarantees. I mean, weapon plus financing of this weapon for the period of time, at least 10 years.
Yeah.
We are producing 50 to 60, probably we will produce 50 to 60% of the weapon needed by ourselves. But we still lack of a lot of air defense system, etc., etc. We need money to rebuild Ukraine and to do injection into the economy. We need people, Ukrainians, to come back and work and live in Ukraine, as well as we need to understand who will be punished for these war crimes they've done on the territory of Ukraine. So these three blocks, if we will have answers, clear answers, and it will be acceptable, so to say. We understand that we have to, if you want to have a peace, we need to negotiate. But still, there is a red line of negotiations which you cannot cross. Otherwise, the nation will be, you will have unrest inside the nation. So which we don't need, having a war on our doorsteps.
Sure. Yulia, wish you luck. Thank you very much indeed. Yulia Serko there, Ukrainian MP, speaking from Ukraine, saying, you know, quite an important part of whatever it is that they agree in Washington, and whatever it is they agree in Moscow, and whatever it is they agree through Zelensky's offices in Kiev, is that somebody's going to have to stand trial, or at least take responsibility for some of the atrocities that have happened. You know, the raping of women, the raping of children, the kind of ghastly, horrible behaviour that has been going on in Ukraine, I'm afraid, at the behest of the Russian forces. And she says if Zelensky agrees to a deal which involves giving up territory, it will be political suicide, which means they won't accept it. So, you know, it's all to play for. Let's have a look at what a reporter said to Vladimir Zelensky about wearing a suit.
First of all, Mr. President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks good.
I said to the one that attacked you last time. See, now he's I remember that.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. You see, I changed you out.
Maybe yours is much better.
Yeah, I mean, you might not think that's important, but it sort of is. Let's have a look at what Keir Starmer had to say about the trilateral agreement. This is where you can see the cold sore, by the way.
We had two material outcomes. The first, on the question of security guarantees, was the agreement that the coalition of willing countries, that's 30 countries already working together on security guarantees, will now work with the US on those guarantees, coordinating, and we have already commissioned our teams to do the detailed further work on that. That's really important for security in Ukraine, for security in Europe, and for security in the United Kingdom. The other material outcome was the agreement that will now be a bilateral agreement between President Putin and President Zelensky. That was after a phone call between President Trump and President Putin during the course of this afternoon, followed by a trilateral, which will then add in President Trump.
I literally listened to all of that and I heard nothing. I don't know about you. All I can do is look at that mark on his face. And, you know, I don't think I'm being facetious here. Look at that. He's got some kind of cold sore, or somebody smacked him in the mouth. Why doesn't he just cover it up? I mean, you can get things that will cover it up. It's very weird. I'm sorry. Another weird thing about Keir Starmer. He's got a cold sore or something on his lip. Why is he speaking to a camera? And also, what's he saying? Do you have another listen to it? You know, play it again. What's he saying?
We had two material outcomes. The first, on the question of security guarantees, was the agreement that the coalition of willing countries, that's 30 countries already working together on security guarantees, will now work with the US on those guarantees, coordinating, and we have already commissioned our teams to do the detailed further work on that. That's really important for security in Ukraine, for security in Europe, and for security in the United Kingdom. The other material outcome was the agreement that will now be a bilateral agreement between President Putin and President Zelensky. That was after a phone call between President Trump and President Putin during the course of this afternoon, followed by a trilateral, which will then add in President Trump.
I mean, Is it any wonder that we can't solve any of the problems in this country when this is the bloke who's in charge, who cannot put a sentence together without mentioning bilateral, trilateral, there was an agreement, we're going forward, we've made some really material progress, because in the end what we're going to do is we're going to sit down and make some more material progress with some other people in a room with another meeting, and it came thanks to a phone call that happened between some other people. Oh, I mean, no wonder the bloody bins don't get collected. No wonder the migrants don't get stopped from coming into the country. Can you imagine going to Starmer and going, look, sorry, Prime Minister, we need a decision from you. Well, let's set up a call. Let's make sure that there's a trilateral scenario. Let's make sure that there are at least 3 people involved in it. That somebody's going to take the minutes of the meeting. It's literally like student politics. I used to sit in these meetings when I was at Student Union in 1978, listening to these idiots who wanted to be, you know, leaders of political organisations. And they spent more time discussing whether or not they should involve Ceylon tea or Chinese tea, if we were going to have tea at all, whether we should have milk. And let's have a long conversation about whether we should have powdered milk or instant coffee. Well, I think I put it to you that what we should do is have a bilateral organised meeting so that we can decide in the fullness of time whether or not we should have tea or coffee, or whether or not we should actually do anything at all, or just sit around sounding like complete and utter wonks. Jesus Christ. Let's get a voice note from Steve.
Steve from Barnsley. Morning, Mike. Every day just gets worse and worse with that plonker. What a wally. He could talk a glass eye to sleep.
Oh, my God. Steve, thank you. It's just unbelievable, isn't it? Mike, I'm a fan of yours, says somebody without giving a name. Sorry, not least because you bring laughter where there might otherwise be despair. But Zelensky deserves respect. He is a brave and clever man. Remember that Churchill often wore his boiler suit in the war, including to high-level meetings. I don't know whether Zelensky deserves respect, to be honest. I think a man who can't put a suit on when he goes to a meeting in the White House with the President of the United States of America is a bit of a plonker. And he's doing it, obviously, for effect. And the best he can do is find a jacket that isn't a proper jacket. But at least he's found one. He wore the same thing to the Pope's funeral. I'm not British, but I understand generally what you're talking about in terms of migrants, says Cassia. We Polish face exactly the same. The only difference is the nationality of migrants committing crimes, etc. Tons of Belarusians, Georgians, Ukrainians, plus a growing number of people from Eritrea, Egypt, Chad, Niger, on the eastern border, destroying the fence. I have no strength to watch the Polish news. Please look after your beautiful country. Kazia, thank you very much indeed. I don't know what it's like in Poland, but I can imagine your despair, because we are all in despair. Listen, the world is undergoing a kind of, you know, malapropism. The world is changing before our very eyes, because there are people coming from sub-Saharan Africa, coming from Asia, coming from places like Afghanistan, and they are flooding, and I don't use that word inadvisedly, they are flooding into Western Europe. And if you're in Western Europe, it's a very disquieting moment. Because suddenly you look around and you go, hang on a minute, where did my country go? You know, you walk around in Oxford Street, and I kid you not, during the summer months, and as I do on a regular basis, twice a week I go there, it's full of people from the Middle East. I don't know whether they're from Bahrain, or whether they're from Saudi Arabia, or whether they're from Kuwait, or whether they're from the United Arab Emirates, but a lot of them come here in the summer because it's, you know, a lot cooler. But frankly speaking, you walk around, if you go inside Selfridges, for example, you wouldn't even know you're in Britain. You just wouldn't know. There's hardly anybody there who looks in any way British. And I don't mean white, I mean British. They just aren't British anymore. And that, for me, is a problem. And if you don't think it's a problem, and you just think, oh, it's all great, it's all about multiculturalism. No, it's not. The face of Britain is changing. And we have to be aware about it. And the thing is that we are, unfortunately, in a lot of ways, monetising it. A lot of these people coming into the country are being paid to be here, are being paid not to work, are being paid so that they can do things on the black market. You know, it's simply not acceptable anymore. 0344 499 1000. Coming up very shortly, we're going to talk to George Madgwick, councillor at Portsmouth Independence. He's going to tell us what's going on with the hidden asylum seeker problem down there on the south coast. 0344 499 1000. Paul in Essex says, I hope that an end to the war between Ukraine and Russia can be facilitated. I wonder, when this war does end, how many of the Ukrainian refugees will return to their country and how many will choose to stay. I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know how many of them have gone back. I suspect many of them might choose to stay because Ukraine has been destroyed to a large extent, and as much as some people don't want to give any more money to Ukraine, you have to remember that their country has been pretty much blown up by the Russians. You know, you look at some of the cities there, they've been destroyed. There's nothing left. They have to rebuild. And if you're going to go back there, you have to have a house. You haven't got a house, where are you going to live? Coming up later on the show, Robert Jenrick is here. He's the Shadow Justice Minister, of course. It's 7:40.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:41. I'm Mike Graham. Morning, Mike, says Margaret. Did you see the bust of Winston Churchill? Just to remind that plank what a leader could be and should be. Can you imagine a bust of Starmer with a cold sore? Well, this is the thing. Why is he showing it off? Why doesn't he just cover it up? Get somebody to do something with it. I thought two-tier Keir threw shade as President Trump by saying, what are you doing comes alongside what we, the coalition of the willing, have been doing. The cheek of it. Love you two together. That's me and Blexley. You always cheer me up, says Angie in Gloucestershire. Well on form today, boys. The home of hilarity and honesty as well. The best breakfast show ever, says Peter in Croydon. Thank you very much for that. Hi, guys. Starmer looks like he's trying to take all the credit for Trump's efforts on the Ukraine. He wasn't talking like this before Trump got involved. All the best, says Mark in Adelaide, in Australia. Yeah, I know. Starmer is just a very, very odd creature. I just don't understand it. I can't explain why he is the way he is. It doesn't make any sense to me. This from Elizabeth. Another fantastic show this morning. What a great twosome Mike and Peter are. They bounce off one another. Plank of the Week is going to be brilliant on Friday. It always is brilliant. Absolutely. And also, says Janice, Zelensky didn't look fabulous. He looked like an overgrown toddler in an outfit with growing room. Sleeves were too long, trousers didn't fit, and trainers, for God's sake. Yeah, I mean, what's wrong with him? You know, he turns up in fatigue sometimes. Other times he just turns up with a sort of, you know, a round neck sweater on. Just put a bleeding shirt and tie on. What's wrong with that? What, are you trying to make a point that you're still at war or something? And I know that some people will say, well, what difference does it make what he's wearing? Well, it does make a difference. Now, just before we speak to George Madgwick, councillor at Portsmouth Independence, let's have a look at what Keir Starmer said he was going to do with illegal migrants.
For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order. In exchange for every return, a different individual will be allowed to come here via a safe route, controlled and legal, subject to strict security checks and only open to those who have not tried to enter the UK illegally. This will show others trying to make the same journey that it will be in vain, and the jobs they've been promised in the UK will no longer exist because of the nationwide crackdown we're delivering on illegal working, which is on a completely unprecedented scale.
Right, so let's just add up the numbers, shall we? You're going to be detained and deported in short order, according to the Prime Minister, if you come here illegally. Since he made that announcement about 11 days ago, 2,500 people have come here. None of them have been detained. None of them have been deported. So he's a liar, I'm afraid. I'm sorry to say that, and I know that Downing Street will be very upset at my words, but I'm afraid the evidence would suggest that nobody's been detained and nobody has been deported. That makes him a liar, because he said that they would be. OK? Let's have a look at Yvette Cooper, who told us that not only would people be detained and deported, but she'd give us regular updates on what was happening.
Well, we'll provide regular updates for the public at every stage. That's why I'm confirming today that the pilot has now started and the first migrants who arrived on small boat are now in detention. The transfers to immigration removal centres are underway as we speak, so we won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit.
Right. So they're in detention, apparently, these people. We don't know how many of them there are. We don't know where they're in detention. And that was 12 days ago, and we haven't had any more updates. So are they still in detention? Have they been released from detention pending a trial? Have they been released from detention pending an appeal? Have they been released from detention pending their application to stay, given that they have got the right to a family life and under the ECHR rules? I don't know, and you don't know, and presumably she doesn't know, because as of now, she has not updated us for 12 days. And as you see, the migrant tracker there hasn't gone up since yesterday, so we expect it to go up as soon as we get more information. 51,239. I'm betting that by the end of this show, if we get some new figures, it will go up to around about 53,000. It's an awful lot of people since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. Let's have a look at how people are being detained. This is... So, apparently there's 3 people there with their little blue bags having been detained. Don't know where, don't know how long for, don't know whether they're behind bars, or we just don't know. I mean, they might even be Home Office stooges for all we know. They could be actors. That's all we've got. That's all they've given us. It's all we know. Let's talk to George Madgwick, Reform councillor now down in Portsmouth. Wasn't independent, he's now decided to go to Reform. And why not, indeed? George, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm very well indeed, sir. What's the latest news from down there? It turns out that you've discovered there's more asylum seekers in Portsmouth than you thought.
Well, I was about to say, I'm glad you had an update 12 days ago, because we haven't had one since 2023, apparently, according to our council's records. And, you know, in relation to where you think they are, well, I can tell you where they probably are, Mike. They're dispersed within our communities without us even knowing it. And that's the story that's breaking from Portsmouth right now. About a month or so ago now, I was approached by a number of residents to tell me that they had been evicted, given Section 21 notices from their landlords to remove them from their properties to make way for migrants. And I thought that that was a bit far-fetched when they originally told me. And then I was told by people that migrants are moving next door to them in HMOs, and I thought that was a bit far-fetched. So I approached the council and said to the council, this is the accusations I'm hearing, you know, tell me more about it.
Right.
And council said, no, we've got no record of any HMOs being used for migrants. It's not happening in our city. We were told that it wasn't happening, so it's not. And then the breaking point really was early last week, where an estate agent contacted me and said, George, I must make you aware of this. And she was really unhappy because she sold a house last year, an HMO last year, to a developer that had 8 local residents in it. That developer contacted her again to resell the property, and that property had now had 8 illegal, or people, you know, that come here illegally, migrants in that property, and she was asked to resell it. So she approached me with that. I went to the council, said, this is the evidence we got. They went away to the Home Office, and we found out that, yes, indeed, we have 55 HMOs in this city being used to house migrants that they never told the residents about and never told the council about.
Right. And these are 55 rental properties, which are what, flats, houses? How does it break down?
The houses are multiple occupancy, which obviously usually are former family homes that have been torn up to create small, tiny bedrooms, usually slightly over 10 square meters. And you usually have anywhere between 3 up to 10 people per household. So there could be... The estimates are coming out saying that there is anywhere between 200 and 450 migrants in Portsmouth that we never knew about, that we would never know about.
And are all these houses just dotted around? Are they all in the same areas? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, they are completely dotted around Portsmouth. They're within local communities. They're near schools. They're near GP surgeries. They're right smack bang in the middle of communities. I mean, the Home Office have refused to tell us specifically where any of them are. However, obviously, we've had confirmation from estate agents and so on and so forth to tell us where a few of them are, and they are spread across the city, yes.
Yeah, and presumably, and I've made this point before, if they're moving people out of hotels, where they are given, you know, free food, free lodging, free access to all sorts of things like you know, theatre tickets and gyms and football matches and all that, they'll have to continue that support, presumably. So will they be giving them money for food? Will they be providing food for them? What?
I mean, yeah, the government do provide them, obviously, a set amount a week, but also we just found out yesterday that Portsmouth specifically, and I believe this is happening elsewhere, are offering a leisure card, something called a leisure card to people. And that gives these asylum seekers free access, as you say, to gyms, badminton courts, tennis courts, squash courts, table tennis, but also it gives them access to discounted coffees and teas and things like that. So not only are they getting money, they're getting access to things that even local working residents don't get access to themselves.
Amazing. And do you know where any of these people are from? Or do you know anything about them? Do you know whether they've been checked for, you know, criminal activity abroad or anything like that?
No, Mike, and this is the problem. You'll probably know from previous stories that Portsmouth has seen a spat of crime recently, and arrests from migrants, so it's become a real concern down in Portsmouth. But no, that's the problem, is that, and this is the thing I always tell people, that the issue here is that you've got hundreds now, as we know, undocumented, unchecked migrants on our street. We don't know if these are good people or bad people. We simply don't know. And then these people are free to walk the streets, mix with our communities, and some of them, unfortunately, not all, some of them are a danger. They've proven that. And there's no security for our local residents. And it's the politicians making these decisions. And I always say, Mike, the politicians are elected by the local people to serve the local area. They're not elected to serve foreign-born nationals that have come here through illegal methods. And I just think, in my personal opinion, they need to be in some form of detention centre where it is a secure and safe facility, not only for them, but also for our people, until they're processed in due process.
I mean, do you even know, for example, whether they've been granted asylum, whether their application is ongoing, whether they've been denied asylum? Because that's the thing that we don't know as well, is that, you know, when they come in, if they lodge an asylum claim, it takes about a year for it to be processed. It takes quite a lot of time for it to be figured out. But they shouldn't be giving them housing if they haven't yet been given asylum, surely to hell.
I couldn't agree with you more. And what we've discovered is the hotel. See, we were led to believe in Portsmouth that the Royal Beach Hotel was the only hotel that was being used. We were told that multiple times. And what we found out from staff now at that hotel is that that's been used as a dispersal location. They're going there for a short period of time until they can find local housing in Portsmouth, at which point they're then being put into these houses of multiple occupancy. And it truly, truly is terrible. And say the fact that really, really angers me is that the residents, local people, that you got to remember, the people that live in these HMOs, Mike, are usually the most vulnerable people of our society. They're people on low wages, low income, that are just managing to get by. And these people have been given Section 21 notices to be forced out of their properties to make way for migrants. And that is what I think is shocking. When we're in the middle of a housing crisis where we've got 12,000 plus people on the waiting list in Portsmouth, and you're removing affordable housing for those people, I'm sorry, it's a scandal. It's an absolute scandal.
Absolutely right. And I was reading a piece at the weekend about Bournemouth, right, in the Sunday Times, where there's a group of people, they call themselves vigilantes, but some people don't like them being called that, who are literally patrolling the streets at night to make the streets safe for the women and girls of Bournemouth. I don't know whether you've got that problem in Portsmouth or whether you've got anything like that going on, but this is a real problem that ain't going away.
No, it's not going away, and the government need to listen. That group, I believe, are called the Bournemouth Patriots, and there is in Portsmouth called the Portsmouth Patriots that link up. And the Portsmouth Patriots organise all the peaceful protests, and they organise the things like that as well. And I believe that those two groups are linked together. But you're right, this problem is not going away. You know, originally this was kind of a localised issue, and as you know, Mike, this is now going countrywide. It doesn't matter where you are in the country, there is some form of protest, some form of objection, and I think it's really getting to a breaking point where people have just had enough, and the government need to listen. And the fact that the Home Office have not updated our council since 2023 after reassuring them that there would be no more migrants put in our community is truly shocking. And where else is it happening is my question.
Yeah, absolutely right. And what about the flag situation down in Portsmouth? What's going on with that? Because a lot of councils, we're told, are taking down Union flags, England flags, saying you can't fly them for one reason or another. What's going on with you?
Well, down here locally, we have just come onto the trend. So I've only seen local residents as of 2 days ago start to put them up, and our council's not yet responded. I am very hopeful that our council will allow this to happen. I think they should allow this to happen. And as a councillor on Portsmouth, I would urge the administration of the council not to take down a single flag. There should be no shame in being patriotic to this country ever, and taking down a flag sends an incredibly poor message.
Yeah, absolutely right. George, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. George Madgwick, the new Reform councillor down in Portsmouth, telling us that basically there are 55 homes, HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy, which are now occupied by asylum seekers, which nobody in Portsmouth was told about, which nobody in Portsmouth was asked about, and which nobody in Portsmouth voted for. A couple of hundred, possibly more people than that, living in rental accommodation paid for by the taxpayer, provided by the taxpayer, making a profit for some very, very greedy landlords, and absolutely no benefit to the community whatsoever. If that's happening where you are, which I'm sure it is because it's happening all over the country, we need to hear from you. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Linda says, Mike, I hope all these hotels housing all these illegal migrants are named, shamed and boycotted in the future for accepting money over the safety of our children. This is a massive story, guys. Massive story. We've been leading the way on it all the time, and we're going to continue to lead the way on it. We'll bring you more on all of it coming next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Kevin O'Sullivan in for Julie Hartley-Brewer. The cure for Captain Cold Sore? An election, says Steve in Cumbria. And I suffer from cold sores only when I'm stressed or run down. Hopefully he will throw the towel in soon, says Martin. Absolutely right. And one from Keith who says, Mike, at least our Stalin is keeping a stiff upper lip given the self-inflicted stress from his disastrous premiership. Well, I mean, listen, there are so many people drawing attention to the fact that Keir Starmer seems to have some kind of cold sore or some kind of affliction on his lip. One, he hasn't bothered covering it up. Two, why would he not cover it up? And three, how did he get it exactly? Is it a cold sore? You know, we need to know. In America, if that was the case and the president came out with a cold sore, they would literally be crawling all over it like a rash. They'd have doctors coming in, talking to me, telling me why you could get something like that, how it's stress related. You know, it's very weird. He's very weird. I'm sick to death of him. I don't know about you. It's coming up to 8 o'clock. We'll see you after the news.
How much? My message to people smugglers is this. I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Smash the gangs. Smash the people smuggling gangs.
People smuggling puns.
He couldn't even smash an avocado for a piece of toast.
Or the people... What would that... The people...
I think smashing the gangs is a deterrent. Well, it might be if you smashed any, if you found any.
The people smash... Those... The smash...
And he hasn't smashed anything. I mean, literally all he does is he smashes records every sort of couple of weeks, where more and more people come in a period of 24 hours.
Smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
You're never going to smash the gangs. That's something that basically is impossible. The gangs are like the Hydra. You cut the head off and another two grow.
So I did write to ministers and say that I wasn't convinced that smashing the gangs was the right sort of way of thinking about things.
We will smash the gangs that undermine our security.
Keir Starmer has just tweeted 15 minutes ago. He says, "I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source." Maybe I'll just read it all in his accent, shall I?
There is no return to freedom of movement. We have left the EU. I do not accept that prevents us working with other police units here, with prosecutors here, to smash the gangs.
Yeah. Well, sure, the smuggling gangs are absolutely quaking in their boots now. Keir Starmer is on their case. Solving this issue, smashing the gangs, is that the impossible dream, Tom?
It really seems beyond him at the minute, I have to say.
We're going to get the evil people smugglers and we're going to smash them and we're going to put them in jail. That will solve the migrant crisis. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's promise to smash the gangs has resulted in just 5 convictions. Hurrah for operating small boats.
So what he really wants to say is that this policy of smashing the gangs is a total and utter disaster. There isn't a cat in hell's chance that it's going to work.
It's crap. It's crap. That's what he's basically saying.
I know you're angry about immigration. I get it. Mark my words, I will take back control of our borders. That means cutting migration, ending the use of asylum hotels, and ramping up our efforts to stop small boat crossings.
It's like a parallel universe, the real world, as told by the impressive David Bolt, and Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves' fantasy world.
We will smash the people smuggling gangs at source.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 8. We are here this morning, of course, on what is only known as Tuesday the 19th of August, and we have got lots and lots of news for you. After yesterday's doings in Washington, it seems as though there may well be a deal on the table for Volodymyr Zelensky to talk to Vladimir Putin. He's admitted that he might be happy and willing to do so. Whether or not, however, it involves giving up some land, whether or not it involves having some kind of long-term peace deal, which means that Vladimir Putin will stop firing rockets into Ukraine, remains to be seen. We heard from a Ukrainian MP in the last hour who said if Starmer and Macron and all the rest of them manage to try and convince Volodymyr Zelensky to accept a peace deal which involves giving up any land whatsoever, they said it would be political suicide for him in Ukraine. So the Ukrainians are clearly not going to budge on giving up any land. The Ukrainians are not going to budge on also not punishing Russia for what they've done. One of the things they also said was that we want reparations, not just in terms of money, but in terms of trials. We want people to turn up and face the music and admit that they committed war crimes, raping children, raping women, committing terrible, terrible atrocities while they were invading Ukraine. That doesn't sound to me like that is going to be anywhere near a settlement that can be brought about. We've got, of course, Keir Starmer trying to play the middleman, trying to make out that he is part of the coalition of the willing, and unfortunately, it doesn't make any sense at all. We'll be talking about that, plus a great many other stories as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number. We've got Robert Jenrick coming up in this hour. He's written a piece in the Sun, saying it's not racist to care for your family. Robert Jenrick, of course, yesterday said there are now people in this country who are warning their children not to go to school without an escort, telling them don't wander around because there are so many migrants in your local town that they might try and do you harm. They might try and kidnap you. They might try and sexually molest you. They might try and rape you. They might even try and kill you. And that's where we are right now in the United Kingdom in 2025. It's a shocking state of affairs. I'm absolutely staggered that we haven't stopped it. You know, what's Keir Starmer doing in Washington when he should be here stopping the invasion of millions of people coming in from all points, north, south, east and west. Tower Hamlets has been tearing down Union flags. That's a borough in London which happens to be run by ethnic minority councillors. There's a flag backlash hitting all across the country. Daily Mail's got a big spread about that, saying, you know, all over the country, from Birmingham to London, back up to Leeds, over to Newcastle, over to even Shrewsbury, down to Dorset. People are putting up British flags, people are putting up Union flags, they're putting up flags of St George, just to show how absolutely patriotic and nationalistic they now feel. Because people in this country have had enough. We've been saying it for a long time, but they are sick to death of it all. This is Morning Glory, let's get it on. Sean says, morning Mike, Rachel Reeves has finally found some growth. Unfortunately, it's on Keir Starmer's lips. Yeah, that's a good one, that. Morning Mike, George in Blackpool here. I reckon Starmer was going on all expenses included holiday to Mauritius. Well, supposedly he cut his holiday short, or at least didn't go on his holiday, on the basis that he had to go to Washington to take part in the coalition of the willing. Do you know what I mean? Let's have a voice note from Mark.
Just watching your video, Luke, there of these so-called European leaders lining up for a photo op with Trump, the way that von der Leyen and Macron had a little wrestle to get next to Trump. You know, me, I want to get next to him for the photo op. Then they line up there. It just makes me furious the way our treacherous leaders have sort of allowed our country to be bullied and cowed by these snivelling wimps. They really are. I hate the lot of them. Can't stand them. And they've spent years, you know, slagging Trump off, saying how bad he was and what a right-wing bigot and fascist and all that he was. And now, as soon as it looks like this war's ending, they want to get next to Trump and be his best mate for a photo op. They are the most slimy, cowardly, sycophantic, sniggling wretches that I've ever come across, the lot of them. Horrible people.
Yeah. It's got to be said, you nailed it there, I'm afraid, Mark. Absolutely right. Looking at the lineup, by the way, Keir Starmer is about as far away from Donald Trump as he could get. You've got Zelensky to his left, the very tall, I think, Chancellor of Germany further to the left, and then Starmer's next to him. The only person further away from Trump is Ursula von der Leyen. So, I mean, Starmer's clearly out of favour. Let's just remind ourselves of how useless Keir Starmer is. Have a listen to this.
Can I start where Emmanuel started, which is we all want peace. The war in Ukraine has had a huge impact, particularly on the Ukrainians who've borne the brunt of it, but it's also had an impact on Europe and on the United Kingdom. There's not a family or community that hasn't been affected. And when we talk about security, we're talking about the security not just of Ukraine, we're talking about the security of Europe and the United Kingdom as well, which is why this is such an important issue. I think this is such an important meeting. As a group, I think we've had a discussion on the phone a number of times, Mr. President, but
I mean, what is he like, just reading from his notes? We've had some phone calls, Mr. President, in the past where we had these conversations. Yeah, he knows what he talked about. Also, by the way, he just said that there isn't a community or a family in the United Kingdom who hasn't been affected by the Ukraine war. I'm sorry, that's not true. I haven't been affected by it. My producer hasn't been affected by it. Anybody else working on the show hasn't been affected by it, as far as I know. Let's talk to James here. Have you been affected, James, by the war in Ukraine? Very good morning.
I think probably less so than others, Mike. And yeah, I think I'm not sure I was in the thoughts of the Prime Minister when he made those remarks.
Yeah, but he said no, there is not one family or community that hasn't been affected. That's just not true.
I think he probably meant was, citing public opinion, the fact that everyone's been emotionally affected rather than perhaps, completely.
But that's also not true. I can see that you're, trying to defend him, and I know it's a difficult job. I don't know why you are, but he's talking crap. Sorry. Let's call it out. Let's say what it is. He's not. He's sitting there. He doesn't appear to be of any use. He's like a spare wheel. Rotating around. He's not close to Trump. Trump is sitting next to Macron. Trump is sitting next to Giorgia Meloni. When he stands up to do the photo op, he's on the far left. He's not actually anywhere near the middle. When they close in on the nearest three, he's not in there. He's talking as though he's got some role to play. Doesn't really. What's the point?
Well, I think that, you look at our energy prices, for instance, they've skyrocketed since the invasion. You look, for instance, at how...
we already had the most expensive energy in the world before Ukraine was invaded.
That's affected all of us as well. The point is that, if prices go up, that's still an effect on us, as is the fact that we're going to be spending a lot more on defence because we're in a different defence world, so that means our taxes will go up. So I suppose there is that sense of the war in Ukraine has actually encouraged the end of that kind of post-Cold War peace dividend, and we are living with that new reality. I take the point about cliches. International summits are not known for their breathtaking prose and sparkling wit and intellect, but I think that, you very much stuck to the script on this occasion, and for them, I think you'll be thinking it's at least they got away with it.
Yeah, but it's all a bit kind of extraterrestrial for me. I just don't think he needs to be there. I don't think any of them need to be there. The deal is between Zelensky and Putin. Trump's managing to do that. He doesn't need any help from the European leaders. They're all just there posing and preening and going, isn't it great? We all get to come to the White House. I just think it's a waste of our money. Taxpayers' money are paying for this, by the way. They've all arrived on separate private jets. The green agenda has been thrown out the window. I'm sick to death of it, frankly. And none of them, not one of them, has got a bloody clue about how to solve the problem.
Well, I think that Trump summoned them, didn't he? So he was the one inviting them to his place. So I suppose...
No, I think they invited themselves, didn't they?
I think it was a bit of both, really, which is that he was the one who chose to host them, and I suppose it would look a bit odd if we stayed at home. And I suppose the good thing about Keir Starmer going there is how little damage he can do at home. So maybe there's something about getting him out of the country, African dictator style.
But let's not forget, there are some major problems at home, There are major problems when it comes to the migrant hotels. There are major... We just listened to a councillor down in Portsmouth who told us, apropos of a story that was in the Sunday Times at the weekend, there are 55 houses that have been commandeered by the council. They didn't tell anybody they were commandeering them, and they're using them to house asylum seekers. And that is not something that people in this country voted for. It's not something they want, and it's not something that's going to go away. If they think that they can just keep moving people out of hotels and put them into houses, that's a recipe for disaster, in my view.
Yeah, certainly, and I think there was a Mail on Sunday story as well about the fact there was a mother of 6 who was kicked out of her house to make way for asylum seekers.
Yeah.
Look, this is the problem when you have scant resources and you have people whose legal status puts them above those in terms of the queue. It's a battle for resources, and you're getting immigrant versus native, you're getting lawbreaker versus lawtaker, and actually you're going to end up with a very bitter and divided country, which I think you can look at the polling, Mike, and it says that's exactly what's happening. People feel they're being let down, they feel that they're being penalised for playing by the rules, and obviously that's a huge amount of resentment.
Yeah, absolutely right. But what I'm saying is that, there's a large majority of people now in this country who are spending their time sitting down in pubs, in restaurants, in community centres. Every single conversation is about immigration, and every single conversation is about what is the government going to do about it. And right now, the government appears to not want to do anything about it, and all we get is messages from Yvette Cooper and Keir Starmer that they've detained some people and they're going to be sending them home, except they haven't done it. And we've waited 12 days for an update from Yvette Cooper, who said she was going to give us regular updates after she started detaining people 12 days ago, and we haven't had one.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that, of course, in summer, it's always more pressure in terms of more arrivals here. That's been the pattern for the small boats since 2018. And I think you're right. Because it's recess, she's able to get away with not giving those regular updates because Parliament isn't in session. And it's striking, I think, actually, Mike, you've only got a couple of people who have really been making the political weather over the summer. Nigel Farage is one of them. Robert Jenrick is another. He's been out a lot. But you would expect more, perhaps, from some of the Conservatives in terms of prosecuting this argument, because Labour are not getting called out on it, and I think you're totally right to make that point.
Yeah, absolutely right. But I mean, it is something that they're going to have to approach, whether it's now, whether it's next year, whether it's the year after. They're going to have to do something about it. They're going to have to give at least the impression that they care, and so far they haven't done that.
Well, I think they're very incrementalist in their measures, and I think that, look, there is certain merit in trying to, try every different solution. But the problem is you're going to end up with the same place as Rishi Sunak, which is that, unless you actually have a couple of big measures, or you're willing to kind of go against some of those shibboleths, you are going to see headlines like we've got there on the screen, sort of money for migrants, housing asylum seekers was financial lifeline. So I do think that's the problem, and I think for Labour, I think there was a naivety coming into office about how difficult this would be. And I spoke to someone very senior in government who said that they underestimated it, frankly, the other day. And I think that now they're coming to the realisation of that. And I think there's the whole political economy around the asylum seekers and the hotels, which is really interesting. And you're seeing that kind of play out, whereby those who've come here illegally are given preferential status.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of resentment to places like Epping and Essex.
Yeah, totally. But it's not just Epping and Essex. That's the point. I mean, there's a danger for people who sit in the Westminster bubble that they think that's where it is. It's not. It's in Birmingham, it's in Newcastle, it's in Leeds, it's in Manchester, it's in Altrincham, it's in Bournemouth. It's all over the place. It's a countrywide problem, and it's almost as though they're kind of pretending it's not there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other interesting thing, of course, is the kind of secrecy that goes on about this, because I can understand, they want to keep people who've appeared, they don't want to be attacked, etc. But, keeping the list secret has obviously caused a huge amount of issues as well. When you think about the Britannia Hotel in London.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing, of course, Mike, is how people are being displaced in different parts of the country. So in different PALs in Wales,
Right.
they've had people arriving there across the border, and that's obviously a place where Wales has been insulated perhaps from the small boat crossings, and yet people are being brought there. So that's an issue and causing issues. And I think one of the spurs, which is why people are voting reform in Wales,
Yeah.
to get the local Welsh elections
Yeah,
next
because
year.
you can try and keep it quiet, but people locally notice it. If suddenly there's a rather large influx of foreigners and people who have obviously clearly come from small boats from countries which are in sub-Saharan Africa or in the far east parts of Asia, they don't look like we do, I'm afraid, and I'm sorry to have to say that in terms of just a general observation. And suddenly you've got a situation. I mean, I was talking to somebody who was down in Sandbanks the other day who said the whole place has been kind of invaded by migrants, and all over the beaches of Bournemouth there are thousands of migrants who have come there, who are staying in hotels. There's 3 big hotels in Bournemouth. Crime has gone up, and there's now a vigilante group, as was written about in the Sunday Times at the weekend, who walk around the streets trying to keep it safe for women and girls, on a regular basis. It's unbelievable.
Well, and the Spectator wrote that story first, but you're totally right. You're totally right, Mike, which is
I didn't know that. Well, cheers to you.
Which is that, in terms of different places, I mean, it's really affecting the local economy, and that's, of course, one of the issues why, the hotels, people say, oh, well, let's buy the hotels. Well, the point is hotels are supposed to bring in additional revenue, you get the kind of seasonal economy, that's always been the model. And the second point to make, of course, when it comes to these hotels, really, is just about, by having those people in those areas, there is sometimes a tendency for crime to be committed, and some of the most appalling things, I think it was in Dover, where there was reports of a sexual assault by someone who was a migrant, and those are the kind of really disturbing cases, particularly whereby it's not even just sort of noticeable, it's people bringing crime and evil into those communities if they've been charged, prosecuted.
And that is my point, that this is destabilising the government in a way that they don't seem to be fully understanding, because it's literally rotting the foundations that they're supposed to be fixing the foundations. It's rotting the foundations under Downing Street, and it's all going to collapse in on itself.
I think that there's going to be one of those really big issues that sort of bleeds out the authority of a government. It costs a huge amount of money. I mean, we're talking billions on hotels every year. And, I'll be interested to see the kind of metrics by which they define their success. Rachel Reeves at the Spending Review talked about how she was going to close every hotel. Well, does that just simply mean buying them up? I mean, that doesn't really get them off the sort of government books. And, of course, are we actually going to see an increase in numbers? Because this year is going to be the biggest on record. They've talked about deterrence, but it'll be humiliating for them next year if the numbers only go up. And I frankly, Mike, given the scale of people being displaced across continents, I can't see it making a huge dent anytime soon.
Yeah, I know. I just don't want them living in my street, really. That's, I think, the basic problem. Let's talk about Rachel Reeves. She's now apparently drawing up plans for a fresh raid on homeowners because, this is a woman who's in desperate straits. She's trying to work out any way she can to raise a bit more money. Everything she's tried so far hasn't really worked because people have sort of got around it or decided just not to pay the tax that she's trying to put on them. She's now claiming that she's going to put some kind of housing tax on the wealthy to try and close the £50 billion black hole. She's not going to do this, really, is she?
Well, I mean, it would fit with some elements of government thinking, which is, Angela Rayner, of course, is rebalancing the council tax rates, which enable to give more money from sort of inner cities in London to places in the north. So there is that kind of sense of rebalancing the economy in a different type of levelling up way. They're just desperate for any kind of money. And I think this is one of a number of ideas, which has always happens in the run-up to the budget. We're now in August. We're expecting that budget October or November time. We've seen in the last week also reports about potentially inheritance tax being changed and sort of ways in which the kind of 7-year exemption would be removed somehow. The Treasury's looking at that. I mean, she's eyeing all these different things. I suspect what it's enabling, it was trying to do is kind of roll the pitch so that when she does come up with only 1 or 2 tax rises, we'll be grateful for the fact that she hasn't actually gone after property, gone after inheritance tax in this way. But I mean, it's an issue, which is that how do you get more money into the coffers, the government coffers? And frankly, property is the obvious way for Labour to do so, even though, of course, it would enrage people who spent their lives saving up for it.
Yeah, I know, that is the problem, isn't it? Because people are now saying to me on a regular basis, we're just going to avoid all of this tax by either giving stuff away to our kids or, gifting things to them. We're not going to allow our pensions to be raided. We're not going to allow our house sale to be affected in any way, shape or form. People are just going to avoid it. And the point is, it won't result in any money going to the Treasury at all.
And I think it's quite interesting that we have had some reports suggesting that actually a number of places are now selling up, and that the great London property boom, which we've heard about for so long, is sort of even falling or stagnating slightly.
Well, it's all gone very flat, hasn't it?
It has gone very flat, and one wonders if that's an indication of a pre-recession or not. But
I hear from, again, a lot of people that I speak to that they were thinking about buying a new place or moving, but the stamp duty has just put them off, because particularly if you're in London, I spoke to one guy who said, the potential stamp duty I'd have to pay to buy a new house is about 68,000 quid, so I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I think totally. I think that was obviously the stamp duty holiday ended under the last government, and I think that that's going to mean that we don't have any particular sort of surge in buying. We're also seeing, in terms of house building, which was meant to be the great silver bullet for Rachel Reeves' economic policy, all indications suggest that Angela Rayner will miss that 1.5 million homes by the end of this parliament. And of course, in London, I mean, there's less than, I think, about 1,000 homes being built a year. It's absolutely shocking.
It really is. It's absolutely ridiculous. But yet, everywhere I go in the southeast, everywhere I drive, there's new houses being built. And you think, well, who's going to be put into those? And then you start wondering, is it going to be migrants? Is it? I don't know. But certainly there is a bit of that going on. It's absolutely ridiculous. James, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. James Hill, Deputy Political Editor of The Spectator. Let's get a voice note from Laura on the police.
Morning, Mike. Morning, Peter. Laura in Wiltshire. Just wondered if you'd spotted the piece in the Telegraph that highlights another brilliant idea by the Met. They're going to cut the size of the historic mounted police branch by nearly half, laying off scores of horses, officers and staff to plug a £260 million funding gap. I wonder what they could get rid of instead. Maybe some diversity officers? What an absolute tragedy. It'll never come back. I really, really hope you get to highlight this, because it's disgraceful. Great show.
Yeah. Great message, Laura. Thank you very much indeed. What a shambles, The police are offloading people who actually could do proper police work in order to pay people who actually don't do any police work. And all we get, for example, is what we see down at the Britannia Hotel, a load of mugs turning up in police outfits with high-vis vests on, protecting the migrants. As somebody said, instead of standing there facing the people who are protesting in a very kind of, mild-mannered and very peaceful way, maybe what they should be doing is turning their faces around the other way and facing the migrants, because they're the people that we need protection from. We don't need protection from mothers and daughters and fathers who are basically standing outside a hotel saying, we don't like you people being here. That's not what we need protecting from. What we need protecting from are the people who are criminally insane, ghastly, horrible individuals who have come here in order to rape women, in order to steal from us, and in order to somehow think that they can get something for nothing. That's who we need protection from, ladies and gentlemen. It's as simple as that. This is Morning Glory.
realistic do you think a ceasefire is this week?
There's a very good chance that we'll have a settlement, an agreement of some kind.
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.
What are you looking for here?
An end. A real end. Well, all of a sudden he's a big shot because he has the U.S. on his side. I am very disappointed with President Putin. He'll talk so beautifully and then he'll bomb people at night.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 27 minutes past 8. It's still looking a bit gloomy out there. It's Tuesday the 19th of August, ladies and gentlemen, so we are supposedly in the dog days of summer. But it doesn't really feel like it, does it? I mean, it was all right yesterday, but it just wasn't really that warm. It wasn't really that sort of, you know, summery, holiday-wise. I don't know if you're out and about having a holiday with the kids somewhere. Maybe a staycation, possibly down in Bournemouth. Yeah, good luck with that. I've spoken to people who've been down in Bournemouth recently who've gone, don't go to Bournemouth. I'm afraid it's overrun with migrants. And the story today in The Sun on page 10 is a Robert Jenrick piece, and he's coming on the show later on. And we're going to talk to Martina Bett in a second about this. He's written a piece for The Sun on page 10. They're showing the demonstrations in Bournemouth, funnily enough, last week, in which there's children, there's mothers holding up massive banners that say, protect children from rape gangs, we stand together for our children. The headline on the Robert Jenrick piece is, there's nothing racist about caring for your family's safety. And, you know, we saw a piece in the Sunday Times, as I said this week, which apparently originated in The Spectator, according to James Hill, that there's now a vigilante group down in Bournemouth who are walking around basically policing the streets to make sure that women and girls particularly are safeguarded from migrants who have been convicted, not convicted in many cases, but some have been convicted, many have been accused and charged of sexual assault, of rape, of all manner of things. Apparently there was a rape that took place in a bus stop. There have been scenes of gangs fighting on the beach. Scenes of the beach looking like somewhere out of the Middle East. I mean, it's just an incredible situation going on. 3 migrant hotels in Bournemouth housing a number of people, up to about 1,000 migrants who have been put there, all living high on the hog, all being paid to be there. A friend of mine was in Sandbanks the other day who said he'd never seen anything like it. You know, the place completely, in his words, overrun with migrants. Let's talk to Martina Bett. But before that, actually, let's get a quick voice note from Andy.
Oh, morning, Mike. This is Andy. Yeah, next time you get Kevlar Kia on the radio, will you give us a warning? I was sat on the M1 and I started to bob off. Started to pull over and grab a coffee. Should put a little health warning on when he starts to talk. Jesus, I noticed cars were swerving all over the road in front of me. I thought, yeah, they must be listening too. So there was just a mass exodus off the M1 into Tip Shelf Services. The queue at Starbucks was huge. But yeah, oh God, he's duller than dishwater, that bloke.
Oh my God, Andy, you may well be right. There's more people listening to Talk than we know. And Starmer just puts you off from almost everything. Driving, thinking, caring. You know, the man is a complete, you know, one institutional hopelessness. You know, it's just a kind of a box of frogs, which is not good. Anyway, listen, Martina Bett's here, political correspondent of The Sun. Martina, very good morning to you.
Very good morning to you as well.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's a real problem in this country. I was just talking to James Hill from The Spectator about it. Keir Starmer doesn't seem to want to acknowledge it, doesn't seem to want to understand the feelings of the people. He has never, and he tweets about an awful lot of things, he has never addressed these migrant protests outside hotels in this country, which have now been going on for a good best part of a month. He's never mentioned them. Why do you think that is?
Well, it is a problem. Parliament is in recess, so they're sort of trying to hide the problem or hide behind the problem. And of course, the summer is a bad time because the weather is good, and we've seen loads and loads of more boats coming to our shores. So they've got to address it at some point, and that's what Robert Jenrick does in our page 10 today. It's a very forceful piece. And he calls it a national security emergency because I think it points to a string of recent alleged crimes involving migrants. Of course, there was the sexual assault in Epping. Then he mentions his attempted abduction in Stockport and the stabbings in Southport. And basically says all of this is fueling this wider sense of lawlessness in the country. And also his main argument is that families, and I heard what you were talking about with James earlier, the families shouldn't have asylum hotels forced on their neighborhoods, right?
No.
And in this piece, Robert Jenrick went to Epping to see some of the protesters there, and he talked to the other main point he makes is that these people are not fascists, are not neo-Nazi groups. Right. These are completely ordinary mums and grandparents who've got legitimate concerns about their kids and their kids' safety. Right. And most poignantly, he points to he speaks about the fact that this mum told him that schools have been writing to her saying that their children should avoid certain migrant hotspots on their walk home. And then there was another one. A daughter said that she wanted to put boots outside their house, construction boots outside their house, to show that to make it look like a man lived there.
Right.
These are not good things. And, obviously this is Robert Jenrick claiming these things happened, but again, it just there's this wider sense of lawlessness in the country that just it's not good.
Right. Well, we were speaking earlier to a Portsmouth councillor as well, who said that, again, thanks to a piece in the Sunday Times, they discovered there's 55 separate dwellings, houses, which are now being used as HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy, for migrants. So, you've got possibly somewhere between 4 and 8 men living in these places. Multiply that by 55. There's hundreds of these people who are now being moved into residential streets, residential neighbourhoods, places where there are schools, and they're not telling anyone about it.
And what I find crazy is that the council didn't know about this, and they only found out because the local MP Amanda Martin spoke about it at a local meeting a couple of weeks before. But the council said the last time we had been in touch with the government in the Home Office was in 2023, which is complete madness, because these people, these councillors, have got, they've got a duty towards their residents, and they had no idea. And another thing that we did at the Sun a couple of days ago, there was a story about some senior Labour councillors saying that they wanted migrants to be housed in town centres because they wanted them to be close to, local amenities, to shops, schools, GPs, and transport, to integrate faster. And the word they use in some of these messages that we got was to combat racist rhetoric, which is completely wrong, because again, as Robert Jenrick was talking about, some people that have got legitimate concerns about migrants being in the middle of their town centres aren't racist. They've just got legitimate concerns about their safety. And I asked the Prime Minister's spokesman about this yesterday, whether he agreed that migrants should be housed in the middle of cities, and he said absolutely not. We've made clear that the current asylum system is unfair on working people. And then he talked about the government wanting to shut down all the asylum hotels. The point that I think that the main concern is the fact that, yes, maybe they will shut down all the asylum hotels, which are costing a fortune. But what happened, they're probably, with these migrants, where are they going to go? Because the numbers are going up. Right. So they're going to be put in HMOs all across cities.
Right, and that's not something that people will want. I mean, Julian Hartley-Brewer and I have spoken about this before. That will not solve the problem. If you suddenly start moving them out of hotels and putting them into actual houses in streets, that will actually make it worse.
It will make it worse. And also, if you speak to estate agents as well, lots of these HMOs were previously used, I'll make you the example of Portsmouth is a university city, and lots of these HMOs were used by students. And if there is no longer housing for students, where are these where are these people going to go? Because, councils are concerned that there is not enough place for these people, that they haven't got enough public service, public resources to house these people, and it's a problem. And what I find quite astonishing is that Britain is quite an outlier when it comes to housing migrants, because if you look at other countries like Italy, Spain, France, asylum seekers are in accommodation centres, which are disused gyms, disused schools. But also the system that they've got in place is that as soon as they arrive, within 24 hours, they're dispersed into the country within 24 hours, right? We don't have that. Right. And they're just staying at hotels. There's loads of them, and they're concentrated into a single spot. What we were called earlier migrant hotspots, which is not good. And it's not good for the fabric of society and for the fabric of society of these local communities as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. Martina, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Martina Bett, their political correspondent for The Sun, on Robert Jenrick's piece, which is on page 10. There's nothing racist about caring for your family's safety, he said. He'll be joining us a little bit later on in the show. Let's have a look at what people are saying on the Sun Letters page.
Letters from The Sun, the page where you tell Britain what to think. For more, visit thesun.co.uk.
And lots of you have been saying things about Keir Starmer and what he's doing in Washington, D.C., very much echoing what I've been saying. Thomas in Glamorgan says this: what use could Keir Starmer possibly be making world decisions when he has no idea how to protect his own country from threats such as illegal migrants? The Prime Minister and other European leaders went to the US to support President Zelensky as he met Trump to talk peace in Ukraine. Starmer seems to spend more time and money on other nations' well-being than our own. And one from Malcolm in York, who says, why did Starmer have to go to the US with Zelensky? He should stay here and sort his own country out. He is the worst Prime Minister we have ever had. And Eric in Slough, can someone please explain why Starmer headed to Washington? He has absolutely no influence with the other European leaders and has more pressing issues to face at home, like the small boats and an inept Chancellor. The inept Chancellor, by the way, is trying to come after anybody who's got a house now. Oh, sorry, you've got a pension, we're going to tax that. You've got a house, oh, we're going to tax that as well. She apparently wants to bring in some kind of property tax on the wealthy. But of course the trouble is, an awful lot of people have got houses that are worth quite a lot of money because the house prices have gone through the roof over the last 10 to 15 years. It doesn't mean they can afford to actually pay tax on them. Do you see what I'm saying? 0344 499 1000. Let's get a voice note from Karen.
Hi, Mike. I can't tell you how hungry I am, let alone the rest of the country. I mean, if I'm feeling like I'm feeling, there must be millions of people feeling like I feel this morning. I mean, we just keep going round and round in circles. Every day there's a different headline. Every day they keep telling us we're far right because we want to protect our children ourselves. I can't believe what our country has come to. It is so sad. It makes me want to weep. But at the same time, I'm so angry. And this Labour government and Conservatives must never, never be at the helm of this country again. And I mean never.
Karen, you speak for an awful lot of people. A lot of people would agree with you. This from Gary. I'm on a holiday in Greece. It's totally embarrassing watching two-tier Keir. When will the government accept the UK as mid to low table in the countrywide scenario and keep out of world affairs and concentrate on the people who pay tax in the UK? Yeah, a smaller and smaller, dwindling number of us. Paul says, in Cornwall, just driven home from a night shift in the ambulance, haven't laughed so much in ages, listening to your good self and Peter Blexley ripping the Mickey out of Starmer. You two should have your own show together. It would make great viewing. Keep it up. Listen, we'll do what we can. It's the best we can do, because at the end of the day, if you didn't laugh, you would literally cry every single second of every single day. It's 8:39. Coming up, we're going to talk more about what's going on in Washington with Sophie Ellsworth, News Corp Australia's European correspondent.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's Morning Glory. It's 8:41. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Of course, Becky from Devon says the coalition of the willing is the most cringe-worthy phrase of all time. Someone needs to tell Starmer that sometimes saying nothing is actually better. I think that's right, Becky. Thank you very much indeed. I'm joined now by Sophie Ellsworth, News Corps Australia's Europe correspondent. Sophie, very good morning to you. Let's play a little clip from for those people who haven't heard it yet, because if you just joined us, you might not have heard it. This is Keir Starmer talking at the White House. I have to say, ahead of time, and people have asked me to give a warning, if you are driving a car, be careful not to nod off. Have a listen.
Can I start where Emmanuel started, which is we all want peace. The war in Ukraine has had a huge impact, particularly on the Ukrainians who've borne the brunt of it, but it's also had an impact on Europe and on the United Kingdom. There's not a family or community that hasn't been affected. And when we talk about security, we're talking about the security not just of Ukraine, we're talking about the security of Europe and the United Kingdom as well, which is why this is such an important issue. I think this is such an important meeting. As a group, I think we've had a discussion on the phone a number of times, Mr. President, but be able now to be around the table to take it forward. And I really feel that we can, I think, with the right approach this afternoon, make real progress, particularly on the security guarantees, and your indication of security guarantees of some sort of Article 5 style guarantees fits with what we've been doing with the Coalition of the Willing, which we started some months ago, bringing countries together and showing that we were prepared to step up to the plate when it came to security.
I mean, Sophie, morning. You've done probably more of these international summits than I have. I mean, he's got this ability to speak without saying anything. He's not really saying anything at all. It's like, this is a very important meeting. You know, obviously we'll be trying to reach an agreement. You know, it's all kind of perfunctory nonsense, isn't it? I mean, Georgia Maloney starts playing with her hair, you know you've lost the room, don't you?
Well, I heard you speaking earlier this morning, Mike, saying the thing that the Brits have is their charm, and they're pretty funny people.
Yeah.
And I don't
Most of us are. He's not one of them.
And I don't think he isn't charismatic.
No.
And I think that's something that he's really lacking. Now, obviously, this was a very serious meeting. It's not time to pull out comedy, but he doesn't sort of work the room and use charm to win over these leaders. Look, we know he dumped his holiday. Apparently, he was in Scotland. He's rushed to this meeting. But as you say, Mike, there's a lot of words there, but what does it all mean?
There's no substance, really, is there?
There's no substance.
It's a kind of... I said this, and you know, I wasn't trying to be facetious. It sounded to me like the kind of conversations I had when I was in the student union, where you'd have some guy sitting down making a really big deal about nothing, you know, and saying, well, we've got to go forward, we've got to get standing order, we've got to vote at a conference, we've got... You know what I mean? It's that kind of, you know, almost union kind of speak, the way that they talk about things, which is not the way that normal people converse, really.
Well, there's a lot of words coming out, but what does it all mean? I did find it really interesting, Mike, in the meeting yesterday when each of the leaders was given their 60 seconds, 2 minutes to speak, and the US president forgot to mention the leader of Finland. He just left him there. And then he's like, oh, by the way, you've got 60 seconds. What do you have to say?
I thought he's probably forgotten his name,
Well, I thought it was a bit weird that they kind of all went around the room and had their tiny little speeches with not a lot to say.
Because in the end, there's nothing really that any of them can offer. At the end of the day, this is a deal that's going to be made between Zelensky and Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Those are the three people that count. The rest of them don't really matter.
And the new buzzwords, Mike, trilat, bilat. They're throwing those around. I mean, I've never heard trilat, bilat bandied around so much.
Exactly.
So it's all about, we're going to have a trilat, we're going to have a bilat, we're going to discuss, it's a lot of talk. Look, points to Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, he is trying to end this war, and he's doing what he can to do that. He's making those stepping stones to get to that point, but there was one man in that room that wasn't there, and that was Putin, and everything stops with him.
Yeah, of course. And if he doesn't agree to whatever it is that they agree in Washington, then all bets are off and it doesn't matter anyway.
That's right.
You know?
So they're going to have a bilat, they're going to have a trilat, and who knows what will come from that. But I did think it was productive to have them all in the one room, but then... You know, you're right. Do they all fly around the world? A lot of them are all pro-green. They're all flying around the world
flying
to
around
come
planes.
to this we have to do Zoom calls.
Right.
A lot of us are sitting on Zoom calls
Right.
now. But, you know, they're flying all around to have these moments there. I did think that Zelensky improved himself dramatically from that February meeting. He rocked up, he dressed well, he used charm, he even cracked a few jokes, and I thought he performed very well, and I thought Donald Trump was very respectful to him. I thought they were both
Trump,
on their
again,
best behaviour.
You know, having been slagged off at the beginning of the week by, you know, the usual suspects who don't like anything that he does, he's blown it, he's given it all away to Putin. You know, they've all gone very quiet because, you know, something's actually going on. There is a conversation, there is a deal, possibly on the table. Whether or not it involves the ending of Zelensky's career. I spoke to a Ukrainian MP earlier on who said if he does any kind of deal which involves giving away land, he's out. It's political suicide. If he does any kind of deal that doesn't involve us being able to question and possibly prosecute the Russians for war crimes, he's out. So, you know, it's a hard road to hoe, this, for him.
Well, that's what Trump has said, hasn't he? This is a very difficult war to end. And he's not really pushing the ceasefire line, even though some of the other world leaders are saying we must have a ceasefire. But I did think that it was a constructive meeting between Zelensky and Trump. And look, they love the theatre of it. Trump absolutely loved it when the media are just screaming at him. It's weird, though, because he did go on Truth Social in the lead up to the meeting, bagging the media, saying how disgraceful the media is. But then later on in the evening, he said, oh, the media's actually been quite good in this case. So
he just toys with them, though, doesn't he? That's what he does. He loves toying with them.
He loves it.
Because he knows that they have to get a story, they have to turn up, they can't blank him, they can't boycott the White House. They'll always be there.
But I do think, Mike, it's interesting, referring back to what you were talking about earlier this morning, is are British people, are people around the world sitting around their coffee tables, sitting at dinner with their family, talking about Ukraine?
No.
There's a lot of serious issues here in the UK alone.
Totally.
And Keir Starmer doesn't seem to be addressing them. And the big one, as you have very much prosecuted, is migration. Where is he doing trilats, bilats, having all these meetings about the issues here at home?
Exactly right. And even when he's had meetings with the European leaders in the past, it hasn't really ever been about immigration. It's been about food standards, it's been about, you know, energy, it's been about green policy. Hasn't really been about stopping the boats or what are we going to do about all these people we've now got running rampant around the country. Let's have a quick look at what Zelensky actually said when he was agreeing to this trilat meeting.
We showed that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, of personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war, and we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about trilateral. I think this is very good.
Look, we just spoke to, I was just telling the president, I just spoke to President Putin indirectly, and we're going to have a phone call right after these meetings today. And we may or may not have a trilat. If we don't have a trilat, then the fighting continues.
It sounds like some kind of, I don't know, I'm not going to say it, a trilat. It sounds like some kind of operation, doesn't it? Procedure that you might be going to the doctor for. Go for a trilat.
They're obsessed with trilats and bilats. But look, if this meeting comes off with Putin and Zelensky, they're talking about that it may even happen in Rome or Geneva.
In the next couple of weeks, maybe.
Next couple of weeks. I mean, that is the meeting that we really do care about, to get those two leaders across the coffee table talking together. If Trump can pull that off, then I think he's well on his way. But at the moment, he's laying the foundations, it appears, Mike, but he's just not quite there. But he's definitely doing, you have to give him points. He's trying to end this.
Absolutely right. But of course, the funny thing is well, is that Keir Starmer, when he made that really dull little speech, said, you know, there's not a family that hasn't been affected by this. You know, and that's the other question a lot of people will be asking. Oh, okay, so if the reason why my energy costs are so high is Ukraine, if the reason why, you know, the loaf of bread I'm buying is because of Ukraine, if they solve the war, does that mean the prices are going to come down? Because they aren't, are they?
Well, they often do blame when there's an issue. I know when I was living in Australia, it was the same thing. Whenever there was an issue, the government goes, oh, that's because of the war in Ukraine. It was a bit of an excuse. Everything's the war in Ukraine. You're right. If this ends, are milk prices, are coffee prices, are petrol prices, are they going to come down as a result of this war ending?
Yeah.
Goodness hopes that they do, and let's all hope that the war does end, but there is still quite a way to go.
Yeah, absolutely right. Sophie, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Sophie Ellsworth there, News Corp, Australia's Europe correspondent. Coming up, we're going to hear from Harry Cole. He's over there for The Sun. He's the Sun's editor-at-large. Robert Jenrick coming up a little bit later on in the show as well. He'll tell us what he makes of what's going on out there on the streets of Britain, because it's all very well, as we said just a moment ago, dealing with the war in Ukraine. What about the war on our shores, which is being brought to us by a bunch of migrants, thousands of them? A migrant tracker now reading well into the 50,000 mark. It's going to be, I would say, before the end of today, 53,000. I kid you not. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:53. I'm Mike Graham, and with you, of course, until 10 o'clock. Kevin O'Sullivan here, coming in for Julie Hartley-Brewer. Andrew in Bishops of Waltham in Hampshire. Hopefully, Sir Keir Snorri will be going to France. He'll be the very first out of the one-in, one-out scheme. Yeah, very true. Morning, Mike. I reckon Keir is going to Benidorm on a holiday. Great show as ever, says Lindsay in Preston. But we just heard from Sophie there saying that he thinks we think he was in Scotland on holiday. Mike, seeing that Keir Starmer has spent most of this year flying around the world, it's time for a holiday in the UK. May I suggest Butlins in Bognor Regis? Yeah. And what about Dave? He says, Mike, is Starmer holiday in Mykonos? I don't know. He's too boring, isn't he, for that? Let's get... what should we do? Should we do Harry Cole? Are we doing Harry Cole? No, we're not doing Harry Cole. No, we're going to do 90 minutes in 90 seconds instead. Is that right? With Charlie Wyatt.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
This is, of course, the latest on what's been going on in the Premier League, which kicks off at the weekend. We had a game last night, Everton Leeds, and Manchester United fans are urging the club to go and buy a new goalkeeper, heaven's sake. Charlie, very good morning to you. What's going on?
Yeah, well, first of all, Man United fans are getting quite irate because they lost 1-0 to Arsenal. Their standing goalkeeper suffered another cock-up like he did last season. And, they're spending lots of money on players up front, but it's quite obvious they need a goalkeeper. So, and I don't think they're going to get one either, Mike. So, they started the season all a bit angry, and I sort of get it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty ridiculous, isn't it, for a club of that stature to think about going into the new season, having had a terrible season last season, without a decent goalkeeper. I mean, you think they would have thought about this before now.
Yeah, it's all down to stubbornness, I think, and the manager, Ruben Amorim, thinks, that the players he's got, the sort of the number one, who's not really a number one, he's pretty average. Onana, he's been injured and he didn't play on Sunday. But yeah, stating the bleeding obvious, but if you want to do all right in the Premier League, you need an all right goalkeeper, don't you? And I don't think United have one.
It's pretty much sort of route one, isn't it? You go, what's going to do? Just start. I mean, even you like setting out your team, you go, right, goalkeeper, who's going to go in goal? What about Everton Leeds last night?
Leeds won. Great start. They're back in the Premier League, and I tell you what, Mike, the Premier League has been a bit dull down at the bottom the last couple of years. The same teams keep going back, get promoted and they get relegated again. It's really important that Leeds United, Sunderland and maybe even Burnley all stay up, and we have some different teams in the Premier League and some different teams go down to the Championship. It's no good for the Premier League that having the same teams every season. No. It's no good for the EFL, the same teams coming down and going back up again. So I really hope Leeds United, huge football club, can stay in the Premier League under Daniel Farke. Crazy atmosphere there last night. They deserve the win, and I hope they do it. Yeah,
massive fan base as well, haven't they? And I mean, who can forget Eric Cantona when he used to play there, in probably the last incarnation when they were up in that neck of the woods, and it was great times in Leeds.
Yeah, and they were the last sort of last team to win the top flight with an English manager. And that was a long time ago. Leeds are huge, Mike. I mean, when you go abroad, wherever you are in the world, if Leeds United are on, there's a Leeds fan in that pub, in that bar. You can be in Thailand, America, Australia. There's always Leeds fans. I think we should not underestimate how big that football club is. And if they stay in the Premier League, they want to rebuild the ground. And it's a huge club. It's a top six club. Yeah. There's absolutely no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch. Charlie, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Charlie White there, the football editor at The Sun. That was 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
Now, coming up just before the news, let's check in with Harry Cole, who is, of course, The Sun's editor-at-large. He's been over in Washington, D.C. He's been checking out the Donald Trump talks with the European leaders. Here he is.
Hello, it's Harry Cole, The Sun's editor-at-large, here at the White House in the press briefing room, where we've just seen one of the most extraordinary summits in 15 years as a journalist I've ever covered. Now, normally these sort of events where you see world leaders coming together months in the organising, months in the making, there's all sorts of things stitched up in advance. Communiques and agreements are written by Sherpas and aides and officials behind the scenes before the leaders ever get into the room. But this has been one of the most impromptu organised meetings in modern history, really. But some form of American underwriting of European defence of Ukraine is a big win for Zelensky, a big win for Ukraine, and it means it does unlock that crucial trilateral talks. That means the Ukrainians are suddenly now ready to negotiate, and these negotiations aren't going to be great for them. It's clear that they're going to have to sacrifice some land. But in another win for Zelensky today, Donald Trump very clearly on the record said that actually he thinks it's sensible to have these negotiations around the current front lines, not the maximalist approach for the Russians who are saying, well, hang on, we want all of the Donbass region, we want bits of Ukraine we don't actually currently occupy to be on the table. It's clear the negotiations are going to begin. Lots of negotiations behind the scenes to get this far. But the real haggle starts now, and while this has been a successful day for Zelensky, there's going to be some bad news down the line, and he's going to have to sell this deal to his people.
Yes, absolutely right. Harry Cole, thank you very much indeed. We'll be checking in with Harry from time to time, based over in the US now. Matthew in Turkey says this: we are property developers, Mike. This business about the council not knowing that homes are being turned into HMOs without their knowledge makes no sense. The licence for a property to be converted to an HMO comes from the council, not the government. A property cannot be operated as an HMO without a licence. So either the government is breaking the law and operating these HMOs without a licence, or the councils are not being honest about their knowledge of these HMOs. Something very fishy is going on. Yeah, Matthew, thanks for that. You can say that again. More coming up with Dan Hodges after the news.
How much?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. We're in the final hour of the show. I don't know how we got there. That last hour went absolutely like a rocket. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 9. It's still looking a bit gloomy outside. It is, of course, Tuesday, 19th of August. We've got plenty going on. The Morning Glory podcast, of course, comes out after we finish around about 10:15, 10:30. That's when you look for it. You get the best of the show if you missed any of it. And if anybody doesn't have a chance to listen to it, that's where your time to go to hear the best parts of it. Coming up in this hour, Dan Hodges is going to be here. We're also going to talk to Jill Dickman, who's a cousin of a slain Hamas hostage, Carmel Gat, because, of course, those hostages are still being held inside of those ghastly, dark tunnels underneath the streets of Gaza, even as there are demonstrations going on in Israel, even though there are people who are still claiming that Palestine should have status without those hostages actually being released. We'll find out what's going on with all of that. We'll tell you what is the latest with Keir Starmer. He was in Washington yesterday, of course, with the coalition of the Willies, as I like to call them. Georgia Maloney was playing with her hair. He was so boring, making his speech. We'll play you a bit of that. Let's get a voice note from Darren.
Morning, Mike. Darren from Warsaw. Please make it stop, mate. Old two-tier, free-gear, Captain Coleslaw. He's just infuriating. He's just trying to make himself sound irrelevant. I said this, I said that, as if he's telling Trump what to do. Oh my God, deluded doesn't even cover that clown.
I know, it's absolutely infuriating, isn't it? We've got a couple of other stories to look at. Rachel Reeves is looking at a property tax, so if you haven't got a house that's worth a few quid, she might be coming after you for that, because she can't find any other ways of making money, which is not great. We've got Robert Jenrick coming up later on in the hour as well. He's going to talk to us about his piece in The Sun, in which he says, you know, it is not racist to want to look after your family, and it is not absolutely essential for housing migrants to be the main purpose of local councils, right? We're also going to be talking about Andy Burnham, who's being lined up to save Labour, because Starmer still, I'm afraid, doesn't have a clue. And the BBC has been forced to correct a Gaza starvation story. They said a woman who was airlifted into Italy died from starvation. It turns out she didn't die from starvation, she died from leukemia. So once again, the BBC not only gets it wrong, but accuses Israel of starving people to death. A complete and utter Hamas vilification, a made-up story, which they were happy to carry on and sending out to the world. BBC also have spent £61,000 on badges and mugs where people can be told how to feel better about themselves. Absolutely ridiculous. Meanwhile, flags are still being taken down all over the country by certain councillors in certain councils, notably Tower Hamlets and Birmingham, and people are putting flags up all over the place as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Britain, as it is teetering on the brink, is it not, ladies and gentlemen? It's 5 minutes past 9, and this is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. David says this, first-time contact from David in Bushy, a regular listener, and just want to say thank you for giving hope and entertaining myself and others in a lunatic world, especially when we have a clown as Prime Minister. Maybe our plastic Prime Minister could focus on protecting our borders instead of worrying about countries where he has no influence. And other world leaders are just too polite to tell him he's as dull as dishwater. I could go on, Mike, but I'd go on forever. Well, let's just check in with Keir Starmer and see what he's got to say for himself over in Washington.
For Ukraine and security in Europe. I also feel that we can make real progress towards a just and lasting outcome. Obviously that has to involve Ukraine, and a trilateral meeting seems the sensible next step, so thank you for being prepared to take that forward, because I think if we can ensure that that is the progress out of this meeting, both security guarantees and some sort of progress on trilateral meeting of some sort to bring some of the difficult issues to a head, then I think today will be seen as a very important day in recent years in relation to a conflict which has gone on for 3 and a bit years, and so far nobody's been able to bring it to this point. So I think
Christ. I mean, can we not find anybody a bit better than that to go and represent the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland? Let's talk to Dan Hodges. Dan, listen, mate, I'm in despair watching that. How useless is he? Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I've been pretty critical of him over the last few weeks.
You have? Yeah, but I mean, performatively, that's just embarrassing.
But I think the whole point is, you know, we had the meeting with Trump and Putin. You know, this major meeting. We had this major summit yesterday with obviously Zelensky, Trump, the European leaders. Yeah. The reality is nothing has happened.
Right.
Nothing has come out of either meeting of any significant substance. Now, people are running around this morning saying, you know, I saw Harry's analysis earlier. You know, we've got this security guarantee from Trump, which is a major shift. But we haven't actually got anything. You know, we've got some words from Trump about a security guarantee, but we get words from Trump on various issues all the time, and then a week later we just get different words. We had the reports after the Putin Trump summit that Trump had agreed to basically hand over the Donbass to Putin, something that would have been unacceptable to Zelensky. That seems to have gone away. So I think in fairness,
what, you mean he's not doing it, or it's now acceptable?
In terms of in relation to the Donbass?
When you say it's gone away, do you mean he's not saying?
Yeah, I mean we didn't. I mean, for example, we didn't have any of that yesterday. No. We didn't hear any of that. Similarly, we didn't have any details, as I said, on the security guarantees. Look, the thing that you have to understand about all this is what has actually happened.
Right.
A couple of weeks ago, we were coming up to another of Trump's deadlines where he had said, if Vladimir Putin doesn't introduce a ceasefire, I'm going to introduce major sanctions.
Yeah.
The reality is, what we've seen is some choreography between Trump and Putin, which has allowed Trump to basically bottle it again and avoid introducing sanctions on Russia again, which he's done consistently. The war's still going on. The attacks are still going on. We've had this ridiculous choreography yesterday. A lot of it appeared to be, you know, European leaders attempting to boost.
But hang on, if you're going to say that this is all just nonsense and it's a kind of an episode of Trumpian self-aggrandisement, why are all the European leaders playing up to it then? Why have they?
Because as we've seen, that's how they manage Trump.
But they don't manage Trump at all. You know,
that's how they try to manage.
No, but they look like lickspittles sitting around, you know, the king. That's what they look like to me. And Keir Starmer certainly is not managing him. He's sitting there making no sense at all, embarrassing this country when he should be back here actually sorting out some of the British problems, not the ones in Ukraine. And when he says, oh, there hasn't been a family or a community not affected by the Ukraine war, I'm saying, when I speak to the people that listen to this show, they're like, we don't sit around in the pub talking about Ukraine. We sit in the pub talking about migration, and we want it fixed.
No, absolutely. But I mean, the reality is, it's not Keir Starmer's job to sit in the pub chatting.
No, but it's his job to fix his own country's borders.
No,
it's his job to get to grips with the massive problems affecting people in this country. And it's not Ukraine; it's bloody migrants.
No, obviously we've got a major issue with migration, but war in Ukraine and war in Europe and the potential consequences of what arise from that war of Europe is a major issue.
Yeah, but that's not what you know me, Dan. I talk about what the people talk about, right? And that's not what they're talking about. And you might think they're talking about it, but they're not.
No, I don't for a moment think that the main conversation in pubs is Ukraine. I mean,
it isn't.
I socially and as part of my job regularly go out and speak to people about what their priorities are, and you're absolutely right. Their priorities at the moment are cost of living, the migrant crisis, concerns about the migrant hotels, concerns about crime linked to the migrant hotels. That's absolutely right. But what we saw yesterday, there are other still major global events happening, and a part of the Prime Minister's job is he's got to be across them. If I've got a criticism of Keir Starmer, it's I don't disagree with you. It's that he has spent too much time focusing on foreign issues and not focusing on domestic issues. But yesterday wasn't one of them, as we saw. The entire sort of Western European leadership was in Washington. If Keir Starmer hadn't have been there, then he would have deserved criticism for that as well. The key thing is, being Prime Minister involves you being able to sit across a vast range of issues, and Keir Starmer hasn't effectively been able to do that to now. But that doesn't mean to say he shouldn't have been in Washington yesterday.
No, okay, I take that point as well. But equally, I think you have to admit that whether or not you think Trump has got anywhere, or whether he's managed to do anything to move the dial on the war in Ukraine, he's at least got Putin to a table. They've had a conversation. There's now apparently an agreement for Zelensky and Putin to have a meeting, right? Which in any world is a step in the right direction. And if that happens in the next 2 weeks, which we're told it will, Zelensky said he'll do it, Putin has said he'll do it, that is a pretty big step forward, isn't it?
Well, it depends what the peace deal is. I mean, people keep saying, oh, if we get peace, then that's a wonderful result. Well, it depends on what terms we get the peace. If we get a peace which means Putin's aggression and Russia's aggression is finally stopped forever, then fine, that would be a result. But if we get a peace which effectively rewards Putin for his invasion, allows Putin time to rearm, and that in 2 or 3 or 4 years' time Putin comes back and has another go, then that would be disastrous. So as I said, the key thing in relation to everything that we've seen over the last week or so is what is the actual concrete deal. If there is going to be a deal, what does it look like? If it does involve Trump saying to Zelensky, you are going to have to give up large swathes of your country to this Russian aggression, that would be a disastrous result.
Well, according to a Ukrainian MP I spoke to earlier in the show, if Zelensky agreed to that, that would be, in her words, political suicide for him. And they would dislodge him from being the president of Ukraine. So he's not really in a position to accept that. In the same way as they're also saying, what we want is to have justice for Ukraine. So what they want, in addition to any kind of peace deal, is the ability to prosecute Russia for war crimes. Well, Putin's never going to agree to that, is he?
No, obviously he's not. Obviously he's not going to agree to that. But the negotiations can't be conducted. I think this is one of the problems. The negotiations seem to consistently be conducted on this is what Putin will agree to, not what Zelensky will agree to, not what Ukraine will agree to, and not what we in the broader West will agree to. And part of that is because Trump, people have different views about why he's doing it. The reality is Trump has decided to align himself much more closely with Putin than with Zelensky. And, this is part of the problem in terms of what we've seen in terms of the response to what happened yesterday. Lots of people are wandering around seeming to think, because Zelensky wasn't bodily thrown out of the Oval Office, because he wasn't openly abused by Trump and Vance, this is somehow progress. No, it's not progress. It shouldn't have that. Well, it is progress.
Come on, Dan. I mean, it is progress because before this there was no meeting, there was no conversation. So you can't say it's not progress. It is progress. You might not think it's enough progress, but it's definitely, the dial has definitely moved. Vladimir Putin has had a meeting with the President of the United States about ending the war in Ukraine. The fact that they haven't ended it yet means that, they haven't ended it yet, but they're on the road to doing so, which has surely got to be welcomed around the world, hasn't it?
You're saying we're on the road to it. I'm just going.
Well, we're more on the road to it than we were before the meeting, surely.
I don't understand.
Do you think the meeting's a waste of time then? Is that you saying you don't think they should bother having a meeting?
At the moment, in terms of the readout,
but that's not realistic, Dan. Come on.
But what's not realistic?
Well, you're saying basically that there was no point in Donald Trump and Putin having a meeting. There's no point in Donald Trump and the European leaders having a meeting. There's no point in Zelensky having a meeting with Vladimir Putin. So what's your answer then?
Well,
what should they be doing?
Well, firstly, what should be doing is Putin should be withdrawing his tanks from Ukraine. That's what should be happening.
Well, yeah, but he's not going to do that.
Now, if you want to talk about the reality of the world,
yeah, but the reality of the world is that the Russians are not going to just go, oh, do you know what? Actually, forget the war. We'll just pull out all the troops out and we'll just go home. That's not going to happen.
The other reality...
If that's what you think is reality, then I'm going to send you to the nearest psychiatrist.
But the other reality of the world is, if every time Russia invades a country, and ultimately the solution to the invasion is we ultimately say to Russia, OK, you've invaded this country, fair enough, you can keep what you've gained in that invasion, please don't do it again, as we did a few years ago, and then again they invade, and again they take more territory, and again our response is, OK.
Well, what do you think we should do?
You've been bad again.
Well, what would
you
suggest? All right, what's your remedy then? Should we declare war on them? Have World War III? Is that what you want to do?
Well, ultimately, if Russia is gonna keep invading people, then yes.
Yes. Well, you want World War III. Dan Hodges wants World War III. Page 1 tomorrow morning, Daily Mail. Let's have World War III. Are you going to send your kids out to fight for you?
Well, Mike.
Oh, you've gone mad, Dan.
Okay, Mike, you were just saying to me that you thought a good thing that was coming out of this was that we just seen Donald Trump offering Ukraine security guarantees. What do you think those security guarantees
I didn't say that. That was what Harry Cole said. I mean, I think it's a good thing that they're having conversations. I think it's a good thing that they're making some progress, and I think it's a step in very much the right direction. Because I'd rather see a settlement than World War III. I don't agree with you.
But surely you have to understand that any settlement has to involve the West saying to Putin, if you invade again, if you invade Ukraine again, if you invade another sovereign state again, we will fight you.
Well, you have to have.
What's going to stop him?
Well, you have to have some kind of agreement with him, so that he doesn't do it again. I agree with you, but it doesn't have to be.
But that has to involve. Surely,
it doesn't have to involve the nuclear option. Maybe it's a commercial deal. There's any number of possibilities. I don't know. You know, I'm not an international negotiator, and neither is Keir Starmer, by the way. But at the end of the day, surely it's better for them to be talking to each other than it is to be firing missiles at each other.
But the point is, they are
threatening to fire missiles at each other isn't any better.
But Mike, that's the point. They're still firing missiles at each other. Nothing has changed.
Yeah, I know.
Putin is still attacking Ukraine.
But they're talking to each other, and if Putin and Zelensky sit down in a room together and have a meeting to discuss how to solve it, surely you have to welcome that.
If there's a meeting, yes, and if it leads to a ceasefire and a peace deal, and it leads to Putin stopping his aggression, yes. But if it's as we saw, as we were told a few days ago, if it's a meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, in which Donald Trump says to Vladimir Putin, "Okay, mate, I'm on your side. I'm going to try and get the rest of Europe and
well, you don't know that's what he said.
To agree. No, exactly. I don't. This is why I'm saying
you don't know that's what he said.
What was agreed.
No,
but until we know what was agreed, I'm not going to turn around.
International diplomacy, Dan, as you well know, is complicated. It's not straightforward. People don't just turn up and shake hands and go, right, that's it.
But you're literally saying to me, we have no idea what Putin and Trump agreed, but you have to welcome it.
I'm saying, you remember the conversations. Do you remember the conversations we used to have where you would say, and I would say, wait and see, right?
Yes.
Remember those? And I said, wait and see. And I said it a lot. And I was more right than I was wrong, right? So wait and see on this one. Wait and see on this one.
Wait and see. Yeah. You said wait and see what Trump will do in relation to Putin.
Yes.
Now, what has Trump done in relation to Putin?
Well, he's managed to get a meeting with him, and he's managed to get Zelensky.
Wow,
hang
fantastic.
on. He's managed to,
amazing.
Brilliant. Well, hang on. He's managed to get Zelensky to agree to have a meeting with him as well, which he agreed to do yesterday.
Fantastic. On the basis
of course it's fantastic. Well, it's better than not, isn't it?
No.
No? Well, so you don't think there's any point in them having a meeting?
You're saying
Dan Hodges wants World War III, doesn't think there should be a meeting between the two warring parties, so we should all just have mutually assured destruction, should we? Like some kind of 1950s nuclear Holocaust movie.
Well, unless Putin and Trump have suddenly agreed to give up their nuclear deterrence, we've got mutually assured destruction.
No, we haven't.
That's a reality.
Well, let's check in with Keir Starmer and see what he says. Right, check this out.
We are moving to war-fighting readiness. When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces, the most effective way to deter them is to be ready. And frankly, to show them that we're ready.
We're not ready, are we?
No, we're not, but we should be, shouldn't we? We should be, shouldn't we?
No, we're not ready. So you've got to tell your mates in the Labour Party, if you want to have World War III, as you've advocated, you better get ready for it.
I'm not
You
sure
are advocating it.
You
are. You just said it.
No, what I
said you'd have World War III. Want to play it back to you?
If we want to have security guarantees, which is apparently, you heard Harry say it, you were just praising Trump. You were praising Trump having the meeting.
I'm just praising the situation.
Arising out of the meetings, we have a security guarantee, then that is what a security guarantee is. A security guarantee is us saying to Putin, not as you said, let's just do a commercial deal with him, or let's take him on trust. A security guarantee is saying to Putin, if you invade Ukraine again, if you try and extend your gains in Ukraine, if you invade another foreign state, another sovereign state, we will go to war with you. Now, that's a situation we've had, Mike, since the end of the Second World War. That's what NATO is.
Yeah.
That's what we've had, those security. We have collective guarantees. We currently say, if you march into France, or you march into Germany, or you march into...
Dan, but that's why he's never done it, right? The fact that he's gone into Ukraine, as you quite rightly said, is because he did it in 2014 and nobody stopped him, right?
Exactly.
And so he will continue to do it. But the Hawks,
exactly.
But the
so
Hawks,
if he's going to continue to do it.
But the Hawks, who say that the next thing he'll do is walk into Poland, or we'll walk into Finland, or we'll walk into some other Western country protected by NATO, are talking absolute cobblers, because he knows that he can't do that, because he knows that if he did do that, then there would be a mutually assured destruction scenario that would be triggered by the agreements that everybody in the world has got, right? So I'm not one of those. So I'm not one of those.
So now, Mike, you're advocating.
No, I'm not. No,
you just said if he walks into Poland, he knows that will trigger nuclear.
I'm saying he wouldn't know. No. Listen to what I'm saying. The fact is, he hasn't ever done that, and there's a reason why he hasn't done it, because there's already a deal in place, right? They're trying to now put a deal in place to stop him from going into Ukraine again, which surely has got to be better than allowing him to continually go into Ukraine. That's all I'm saying. And the fact that they're sitting down around a table, makes it more likely rather than less likely that they'll come to an agreement, surely.
Right. And as you just said, you used the example of Poland, and that's why he hasn't invaded Poland. As you just seem to have acknowledged, if we do have a deal, and if there is a deal, and that deal involves security guarantees, those security guarantees have got to involve ourselves and the United States saying to Vladimir Putin, if you invade Ukraine again, we will fight you. That's what a security guarantee is, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. Fine. So we're agreed.
But that's not the same as saying I'd rather have World War III than them sitting down making useless agreements, which is what you said earlier, right?
No, it's not what I said.
Yes, it is.
I said...
Well, we've got what you said. I'll tell you. We'll play it back to you. Yeah, we've got it here. Go on, play it. What's your remedy then? If we declare war on them, have World War III? Is that what you want to do?
Well, ultimately, if Russia is going to keep invading people, then yes.
Yes. Well, you want World War III. Dan Hodges wants World War III. There you have it. That's what you said.
Russia keeps invading people. Now, you just said...
That's what you just said. You want World War III. You just said it. Those are your words, not mine.
If they keep invading people, we are going to have to fight them.
People.
What do we do? Just let them invade everywhere.
The point is, my point, Dan, is that they don't invade everywhere, and there's a reason why they don't invade everywhere. Because they know where the boundaries are. You know, it's like when you've got a mate.
We're talking about Ukraine.
It's like this is why they're having a meeting to stop them invading Ukraine. It's not difficult. This.
Right, exactly. Right? It's not difficult.
So we're agreed.
They're having a meeting.
So we're agreed, actually, on what I was saying, not on what you were saying, that they need to stop invading Ukraine. And in order to stop invading Ukraine, they need to have an agreement. And that's what they're trying to get.
And that's what Trump, that agreement.
And that's what Trump is trying to organise.
Exactly. And part of that agreement has to involve security guarantees.
Yes.
And those security guarantees have to say, if you invade Ukraine again, we will fight you.
Yes. No.
Right.
No,
so
not we will fight you.
So now you're advocating World War III
just don't
Ukraine.
bloody well do it. Jesus Christ. I don't know. Listen, have a great weekend. Good to see you. Dan Hodges, commentator at the Mail on Sunday. He wants World War III. I don't. This is Talk.
Got a notoriously high acquittal rate dating back decades, and I think it says more about the jurisdiction from where jurors are chosen to serve at Snaresbrook than it does about our criminal justice system. I'm a big fan of jury systems, and we've got to keep them, because if you fall foul of the law, allegedly, and you go on trial, I do not want to be tried by 1, 2 or 3 judges. I want to be tried by a jury.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
.29, welcome back to the home of common sense. You'd like to think it's the home of common sense most of the time, apart from when Dan Hodges comes on and says he wants to get World War III, you know, full DEFCON 5. Crikey. Sorry, bad spelling, says Carl from the Derbyshire Dales. Why hasn't Portsmouth Council been informed? I thought all councils had to have some duty of care regarding individuals living in their community, and they will have to pay council tax. Well, actually, no, they won't, because the council tax will be paid for them, like council tax is paid for people on benefits, right? This one from somebody called Sarah, who says, I live in Portsmouth. I've rented the same property for 20 years. My landlord was approached and asked to hand the property over to them. They would evict me and turn the house into an HMO for migrants. Fortunately, he declined, or I, as a hard-working tax-paying Brit, would have found myself homeless. That's unbelievable, isn't it? Absolutely incredible. We don't actually want this to be going on. And Michelle says, seems they are trying to force us to integrate. It won't work as we do not share the same values. It's soon going to boil over. And Kevin in Gloucester, Mike, really great show. I think Starmer's lip tells us a lot about the state of our country. Yeah, Keir Starmer's got what looks like a cold sore on his lip, and yet he still was speaking to the cameras as if he didn't know he had it, which is a bit weird. Let's talk now to Gil Dickman, cousin of slain Hamas hostage Carmel Gat. Obviously, there's an awful lot of conversations going on at the moment about why the hostages can't be freed. An awful lot of conversations about no issue for the recognition of Palestine until the hostages are freed. Hamas have apparently agreed to a ceasefire deal in the last 24 hours, but of course, we've seen that before. And Israel right now announcing plans to reoccupy Gaza City. Gil, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks very much for joining us. What do you make of this latest ceasefire deal which Hamas has agreed to, in which half the hostages being held in Gaza will be freed in return for more Palestinian prisoners to be released?
Oh, well, it's sometimes hard to know what the confirmation of Hamas really means, because they're saying that they agreed to something, but then when you read the details, you understand that it's actually not an actual agreement. For me, as an Israeli citizen, what I'm focused at is that my government does not miss the chance to actually get hostages out. You know, just a year ago, my cousin was murdered in captivity, and we know that there were chances to release her that my government missed. And Hamas is to blame for her kidnapping. Hamas is to blame for her murder, of course. But if there are there are chances to get hostages back, you can't really miss them. You must act now.
Yeah. Do you feel as though the government hasn't done enough then? Is that what you're saying? Of Israel?
Oh well, of course. If they had done enough, Kamel would have been here. And other women who were actually held in captivity very close to Carmel came back alive because they had the chance to stay alive before the deal was made, and then they returned. So the way I see it, that my government had the chance to get my cousin alive, and Hamas had the chance to return her alive, and they decided not to sign the deal. For me, it's a sign that whenever there's a deal on the table that would save lives of hostages, you have to take it. And you can't just wait and say, no, we're going to have better terms the next week or next month, or apply military pressure, because that would mean ending the lives of more hostages. And we can't take that chance. Israel, the way I see it, is fighting for the lives of these hostages. This is the actual difference between us, between Israelis and Hamas, the terror organization that controls Gaza. They believe in sacrificing lives of innocent people on both sides of the border.
Yeah.
And we, as Israelis, believe in life. This is what we're fighting for. Unfortunately, Netanyahu doesn't always understand this. Now, it looks like sometimes he focuses on occupying Gaza more than on releasing the hostages. I hope he changes his mind and signs the deal for all the hostages.
Do you have any sympathy for his situation, though? Because obviously he feels, I assume, that, you know, he can't give in to Hamas either. He doesn't want to give them any kind of power, if you like, over, you know, over Israel.
Oh, well, I can see what he means, but for me, these are actual excuses, because we went into this on October 7th. Hamas was holding 255 hostages, in which the only way to release them would be to sign a deal with Hamas. And then you can do whatever you want to Hamas after the hostages are no longer there. We had so many chances to release hostages and then to act on Hamas. And we decided that we're going to do the two things at once, both attack Hamas and try to release hostages. Well, almost 2 years after October 7th, we can now see that this is not working. And Prime Minister Netanyahu said so himself. It's not working to try and release the hostages and to get Gaza free from Hamas both at the same time. You have to work in a logical order, to start with getting hostages back, and then to make sure that Hamas is no longer controlling Gaza. What happens right now is that after 2 years, Hamas is still in Gaza and hostages are still in Gaza. My cousin will never return home, and this is a failure.
Yeah, I can see how you feel about that. Really good to speak to you, Gil. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sorry about Carmel as well. Thank you. Cousin of slain Hamas hostage Carmel Gat there, Gil Dickman, saying, you know, he really wishes that Netanyahu would do better getting all the hostages out. The latest peace deal supposedly means that half of the hostages will come out. I mean, it's a terrible situation, it really is. Let's get a voice note from Paul.
Morning, Mike. It's Paul in Bournemouth. The clip of Starmer boring everybody to tears with his speech in the White House. He talks about a coalition of the willing, and then he says to Trump, with you coming alongside, as though he's organised it and he's in charge. Unbelievable. Cheers.
I know, totally deluded, right? Because he clearly is deluded. Meanwhile, breaking news this morning, this is literally hot off the press. Keir Starmer's going to chair a coalition of the willing call this morning on the phone What, from Washington? Where is he? Is he on a plane? Is he back in London? What's the point of that, exactly? Coalition of the willing, what? Coalition of the willing. You've just been with everybody in Washington. What are you going to do? Make a phone call? I'll make a phone call to confirm that we have had a meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, and we will be going forward with a very important treaty, because this is a very important thing that we are doing, and I will let you know exactly when we are doing something important. And thank you very much indeed for calling. Goodbye. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Morning, Mike. Why do so many minority groups wield so much power and influence in this country when they are in such relatively small numbers compared to the rest of us, says Paul in Fife. I detest the phrase communities when referring to so-called minorities. For example, when they say the trans community, I envisage a village somewhere. What, for the trans people? Yeah, maybe. Martina Bett mentioned something about putting immigrants into town centres so they integrate more quickly. Wrong. We don't want them integrated. We want them deported, please, as illegal entrants to the UK, says Noel in Gloucester. Mike, you'll be taxed for having a pulse next and breathing. Let me win the lottery and let me get my family to New Zealand as far away from here as possible, says Karen in Taunton. I truly believe, says David Bristol, that Starmer believes that if he is involved as a minor participant in whatever deal, no matter how bad it is for Ukraine, that his popularity here amongst the British people will skyrocket, and we will applaud him as a great UK Prime Minister. If he thinks this will result in forgiveness for the damage, pain, oppression and restriction of freedoms inflicted on us and continue to be inflicted on us by him and his bullies, I think he's in for a rude awakening. I agree with you. Let's have a look at Starmer responding yesterday to the trilateral agreement that was made, because this is where you can actually see the cold sore for all its glory. Check it out.
We had two material outcomes. The first, on the question of security guarantees, was the agreement that the coalition of willing countries, that's 30 countries already working together on security guarantees, will now work with the US on those guarantees, coordinating, and we have already commissioned our teams to do the detailed further work on that. That's really important for security in Ukraine, for security in Europe, and for security in the United Kingdom. The other material outcome was the agreement that will now be a bilateral agreement between President Putin and President Zelensky. That was after a phone call between President Trump and President Putin during the course of this afternoon, followed by a trilateral, which will then add in President Trump.
Yes. The trouble is you can't really listen to a word he's saying because you can't take your eyes off the cold sore. As somebody pointed out, he seemed to give a kiss and a hug to Georgia Maloney with the cold sore, so she'll have one now. What's going on with that? And why doesn't he just cover it up? It's not difficult. I don't know. We're going to talk to Robert Jenrick shortly, but first, here is Alex Wilson, Reform UK London Assembly member. Alex, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
I'm sorry to say that the cold sore has become a bit of a sort of obsession with mine this morning. We've all had them. Sometimes you get them from time to time. You get a spot on your face. But, if you're going to go onto international TV, it might be a good idea to cover it up, no?
Well, I'm sure he's got access to makeup artists and so on that could...
well, he makes everything else up.
Well, indeed he does, yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first thing he hasn't covered up, actually, quite a long time.
No, absolutely.
We've got a problem in this country, haven't we? And I don't know what the situation is in London, but we're hearing from various parts around the country, including Portsmouth most recently, 55 homes in Portsmouth have been converted to HMOs, and they've been designed to basically house migrants who have been moved out of hotels in Portsmouth. It looks like there's around about 800 or so of them being put into these 55 houses, which have been converted into, homes of multiple occupancy. Do you know if that's happening in London? And if you don't know, will you be able to ask Sadiq Khan about it?
I'm sure it is, as it's happening everywhere, as you've said, and it's kind of the next stage of this whole problem we have with the illegal migrants being accommodated. We have a government that's saying they want to close all the hotels. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
But where are they going to move them? We know they're not going to actually deport them, so they're going to put them directly into people's communities, into people's roads, in these HMOs. And I'm sure they're happening all over London. I will be asking some questions to find out a bit more exactly what the scale is, both on the hotels and on HMOs across London, because it's going to be a problem. And as we've seen with the protests at hotels, people they have a right to know what's going on in their community because they want to feel safe, and that's what this is all about. First and foremost, it's about feeling safe in one's own community, and that's why people are protesting at the moment, because they don't feel that safe, and they don't feel that the people that are supposed to be looking after them are not.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And what about the situation in the Tower Hamlets? Maybe we could put them all in Tower Hamlets, who don't seem very keen on flying British flags. They've been the second council in Britain to take British flags and England flags down, basically saying, it's some kind of health and safety problem.
It's absolutely ludicrous. There is no health and safety issues whatsoever with taking pride in one's own country and flying the flag of our country in our capital city. Look, Tower Hamlets is a London borough. London is the capital city of England, the capital city of the United Kingdom, and the Cross of St George and the Union flag should be able to be flown right across our capital city. We should be proud of it. And you're right, Tower Hamlets is the second council after Birmingham that has decided that this isn't something they want to allow. And so they're taking them down, and it's ridiculous because both of those councils are perfectly happy for Palestinian flags to be flown for months on end, after the incursion from Gaza, and this is England. We should be able to take pride in our own national flag, our own heritage, our own history. And it's no wonder that people are getting fed up, because for so long we've had a political elite that has been very squeamish about celebrating who we are. We're forced to apologise constantly for our history, for our, the legacy that we've given to the world. And we've reached a period now across the line. People are fed up. People have had enough. And yes, it's probably been triggered by the migrant hotels issue, but it's more than that. It's about deep-rooted pride in our country, and we should be encouraging people to do that.
Yeah, exactly right. And also, what right does a little tin pot council like Tower Hamlets have to tell people that they can't put a flag up? What's it got to do with them?
Oh, absolutely. It's about people taking pride in their community, in their country, and for their families. And this is what it's about. It's about people having that opportunity to express their views, their feelings, and their love for our country. And the thing is, you have a very, very different approach in any councils that are run by Reform. You probably saw yesterday a statement from the 12 councils that Reform UK leads. They've signed this pledge that they will not take down any Union flags or England flags that are put up in their area, because, as Nigel said, the Union flag and the Cross of St George should and will fly across the country. It's about pride in our country, pride in our community. And I tell you, if we win any London Borough Councils next year, when we have the London Borough elections, the same will apply there. We will be encouraging people to take pride in their country, and that means flying the flag.
Yeah, I think we should fly it as often as possible, and just if it only annoys people, then so much the better. Alex, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. For Reform UK's London Assembly member Alex Wilson there. Mike, says Margaret in Yorkshire, I noticed that Macron's put a wider gap between himself and Starmer at the table. Must have noticed the mouth infection and not just bored with the verbal nonsense. Starmer mentioned security a few times in his speech. What about security of this nation? We have open borders, Starmer, says Dean in Dagenham. Quite right too. Coming up, we're going to speak to Robert Jenrick, who's right here, right now. It's 9:45.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:48. We're here for about another 10 minutes. Kevin O'Sullivan coming in. He's in for Julie Hartley-Brewer all this week. I'm delighted to say Robert Jenrick is here, the Shadow Justice Minister. Robert, nice to see you.
Good morning.
Welcome to the home of common sense. You've got a big piece of The Sun today. Headline, there's nothing racist about caring for your family's safety. And you show, interestingly enough, Bournemouth, where there was a demonstration. There's demonstrations going on all over the country about migrant hotels, about people not being happy, about the dispersal of migrants either in hotels or in homes. I actually read a piece, as I'm sure you did, in Sunday Times, that there's now a group of people who are not really calling themselves vigilantes, but that's kind of what they are, walking around Bournemouth of an evening because things are so bad down there. I mean, how did we get here?
Yeah, well, I went on Sunday evening to the protest in Epping because I was driving into London and I wanted to show my support for the residents there. I'd been watching it on the news, I've been speaking about it on the media, but I felt it was important that I went and said to them that I stand behind anyone who is peacefully protesting about this. If it was in my neighbourhood, I would be doing the same. And the people I met there were mums and dads, grandparents, people of all ages and walks of life, just normal, decent people, fair-minded, patriotic people who are very worried about the impact on their community and their families. And some of the stories, Mike, that I heard were very arresting. There was a mum, a single mum, who had 3 teenage daughters, and she'd come home the other day and found a pair of workman's boots on the doorstep, and she'd gone in and asked her daughters, where did these come from? And the oldest daughter, who was just about to go to university, had gone out and bought them because she wanted people in the neighbourhood, like the illegal migrants, to think that there was a man in the house, because she was so worried about the safety of her mum and her 2 younger daughters. There was another mum there who was with her teenage daughter, and the school had told them to walk a different way through Epping because they were worried about illegal migrants and the potential for crime, presumably sexual crimes against young girls. Look, this cannot go on. No. This cannot go on. And I think people like that have been completely ignored by Keir Starmer, by the whole Westminster elite, frankly.
Because Keir Starmer, by the way, hasn't been to Epping, and neither has Yvette Cooper, and neither have they gone anywhere, because when I spoke to some of the mums in Epping a few weeks ago when it all started, I said, what would your message be to Keir Starmer? And she said, just come down, please, and talk to us and find out why we're upset. And they haven't done it.
Well, it's worse than that, because actually some Labour politicians are smearing people for going to the protest. I turned on the TV yesterday morning and heard Jonathan Ashworth, the former Labour Member of Parliament and senior sort of advisor to the Labour Party, saying that it was wrong of me to go and join the protests. I don't know if you saw the BBC was saying that I was xenophobic. Yes. Basically, these people are being...
That was Thought for the Day.
That was Thought for the Day on Radio 4. These people are being smeared as racist or even far-right for joining these protests. But the vast majority of people I spoke to, in fact everyone I spoke to, were just everyday people seriously worried about their family's safety and the effect this was having on their neighbourhood. And I think we should all be supporting them if they do this.
And it's happening all over the country. I mean, I don't know if it's like in your constituency, but almost every part of the country that I speak to tells me that they've got a problem either with migrants hanging around the town centre or in a hotel. We did a story this morning with a Portsmouth councillor. 55 homes in Portsmouth have been apparently commissioned by the local council and stroke the Home Office as HMOs, as you know, houses of multiple occupancy. They're putting 8 to 10 men in each of them in the community, and that's not the answer, is it?
No. Well, look, that's going to be the next dimension to this, that instead of putting people in hotels, they're going to be put in HMOs. So instead of being in the Bell Hotel in Epping, they might be in the house next door to you. Right. And yeah, the Home Office might think that that is more discreet, that kind of covers up the issue, but actually it brings it even closer to home for people. It means that you're living cheek by jowl, maybe a house becomes unsellable, life becomes much more difficult.
Also, I was looking...
And although it's very imperfect, you know, these hotels, sometimes they have security, there's a degree of control at least. In the community, there's none of that at all. No. And people are being told there isn't a link with crime, but I'm afraid that's not true. No. Because in the last 100 days, there have been around a dozen allegations of sexual assault in Epping. If you take that as the most prominent example at the moment, there's been 2 serious allegations of sexual assault. People have been charged who were residents of the hotel. We'll see what happens when that eventually goes to court. But there is a serious issue here, and we shouldn't be surprised, because if you've got very large numbers of predominantly young men about whom we know absolutely nothing, many of them are coming from countries with very different attitudes towards women and girls to our own country, frankly backwards attitudes, it's not surprising this leads to more crime, particularly more sexual crime. And that's why we've got to end this, haven't we?
We have.
We've got to bring this to a close. We know how to do it. Starmer has got to learn the lessons of the recent past, change the law, leave these outdated human rights treaties, and deport all the illegal migrants.
173,000 now. You know, people used to say years gone by when the Tories were in, oh, it's a relatively small number, which it is compared to some of the...
Well, that's like the size of a small city.
But well, it's quite a big city, actually. 173,000.
I mean, this is a very large number of people. And remember, each one of those, if they stay, is likely to cost the British taxpayer around £500,000.
Right.
That is money that should be being spent on hard-pressed Brits.
Exactly.
And it's going to have a massive impact on some communities. So it's got to end. The patience of the public has completely snapped on this now. That's why people are out on the streets. And they're not being unreasonable. These are normal people voicing legitimate concerns. And I, for one, completely support them and stand with them. And I think more politicians should do the same.
Meanwhile, Keir Starmer's about to chair a coalition of the willing phone call, apparently, this morning, about Ukraine. You know, he needs, as people have said to me this morning, this guy needs to get his backside home and fix the problem of his own borders.
Well, they're both important. They're both important issues.
But there's one more important than the other, and that's our own country.
Exactly. And what is the most important thing of all is securing our own borders.
Yes, exactly.
What is the first priority of the government? Frankly, of our armed forces. It's securing our own borders, isn't it? Before we start to be concerned about other people and their issues.
Now, Reform UK have put out a video just shortly before you came in today, actually, of you, I think, in 2022, talking about migrant hotels. Have a look.
We have procured more hotels very rapidly, and more are coming on board literally every day. More hotels have been coming online almost every month throughout the whole of this year. So Suella Braverman and her predecessor, Priti Patel, were procuring more hotels. What I have done in my short tenure is ramp that up and procure even more.
Presumably this was when you were immigration minister in the last government, but one, I suppose. They say you don't want anyone to see this, but you've just seen it, so what can you tell us?
Yeah, well, look, they've edited this video and they've stripped out all the context, which is fine. That's what happens in politics. But let me explain. I was a couple of days into my tenure as the immigration minister, and I walked into the Home Office and it was a bin fire. It was a total disaster zone, and there was a camp in Kent, Manston, full of illegal migrants, which was overflowing. There was a very serious risk of riots, of disorder there, and we had to get some of those people out. So we took on some hotels to get some of the people out of the situation in Manston. But by the end of my tenure, I was the first immigration minister to actually be closing the hotels. And in fact, I had brought forward 100 hotels for closure, and more followed shortly after as a result of the changes that I made. Remember, under my tenure as immigration minister, the number of people coming across on small boats actually fell. It fell by over a third. No prior and no subsequent immigration minister has that record. Of course, that isn't good enough. We want to close all these hotels, don't we?
Did you close them
end a lot of them
and kick the people out of the country, though, or did you close them and move them somewhere else?
Well, the reason we were able to close them was because fewer people were coming in. And yes, and we did increase the number of people being deported, which had got down to a very low level. We brought it right up again, particularly deals like the Albanian deal, which saw the number of people being turfed out of the country massively increase. Ultimately, I chose to resign because the way to resolve this issue is to actually hive out these human rights laws like the ECHR and deport people. And I wasn't able to persuade Rishi Sunak, the then Prime Minister, and the others who were in Cabinet at the time to do what was necessary. And so I said, you know what, I'm not sticking with this. I'm going to go to the backbenches and make this argument in Parliament, which is what I did. I brought forward legislation, I marshalled like-minded Conservative members of Parliament who wanted to support me, and we made the argument. What I've done since is say very clearly that the way to fix this, not just to deal with the symptoms about, you know, the hotels, the HMOs, that isn't the answer to this. It's about how do you actually resolve it once and for all, and that is by deporting each and every person. And I'm going to keep on making that argument. I'm convinced that's the way to fix this. Not some of the things, frankly, that Reform have been saying. I saw Richard Tice the other day saying there should be some sort of processing centre in Calais where the world and his wife can turn up, make a claim to a life in the UK, and then we bring some of them over to the UK. No, I don't want any of these people coming to the UK whatsoever. The answer is to have a very clear deterrent. You come here, you'll be detained, you'll be deported. End of story.
Well, that's, of course, what Yvette Cooper said they started doing 12 days ago. Let's have a quick look at what she actually said she would be doing.
We'll provide regular updates for the public at every stage. That's why I'm confirming today that the pilot has now started and the first migrants who arrived on the small boat are now in detention. The transfers to immigration removal centres are underway as we speak, so we won't provide operational details at this point that criminal gangs can simply use and exploit.
We've only got about a minute.